Welcome, everybody, to the Disaster SquadCast. I have with me Frankie from Red Cow Entertainment, and I just wanted to, have one another of my casual chats, learn a little bit about him, about his channel, about what he does, about what he has done, wants to do, and why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, that's me. My guess is that you found me through critiquing poor James Rolfe, and
You will be absolutely stunned to say yes. That is how I found you.
yeah. Well, so the for those who don't know, my channel gained a little bit of notoriety when we were streaming like a Zoom podcast one night, my friend EJ and I, and we were just talking in depth, comprehensively about a really strange video we saw of James Rolfe describing his
Strange.
his like basement setup, his technical setup for shooting videos, and it was an amalgamation of really interesting problems, that ranged from solvable problems that he seemed to refuse to solve, to like technical ineptitude, to all wrapped up in not really giving a fuck about his channel anymore.
And you guys come from a background of film and video, so hearing him talk like an absolute kindergartner putting this stuff together must have just frustrated you guys to no end.
And it had been a long time coming where, I'd been a fan of his for a long time. And so slowly watching him kind of become disengaged with his own channel, something that he did a great job building. And then, it was like, this was a straw that broke the camel's back, where suddenly he was like, there's a lot of people have been asking me, what have I been so busy with? Why can't I make videos anymore? And why do I seem half-hearted? And well, here's why. There's a buzzing sound in the ceiling. And he started describing all these problems that were solvable, and they all became very memeable. And anyway, it became kind of a notorious. What I've heard people say is that they'll get recommended that video by James, and then they'll get recommended the video by us immediately after, almost like a DVD extra feature or something.
Oh yeah. Well, I found your channel. I believe that was the first one I saw. Was the one that I assume has the most views, right?
Oh, yeah, I think that one's like 205,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So I watched a few of the other ones, and I was like, these guys are cool. They got a great rapport. Oh, no offense to EJ. Why I chose you? I just wanted to talk to. Hey, oh my God, buddy.
Do you have Diet Mountain Dew? And everybody knows.
I know.
This is what I'm drinking.
I'm a fatty. I gotta lose. We'll talk about some of that. So we'll get into Cinemassacre. I want to start off by just what is Red Cow Entertainment? But I also saw that that literally is answered on the front page of your YouTube. But still,
I can speak a little bit to that. Yeah. So what was frustrating about a Zoom call going viral, was that I had spent not 5, not 10, not 15, but 23 years making movies, making videos, making podcasts, thousands of podcast videos, high quality or high production value stuff. Essentially an entire adult life of creative works, 4 feature films of varying success. We won Trauma Dance and were distributed by Trauma with our first film. And we did all this really cool stuff. And, YouTube has been amazing. We for 6 years, we did this comedy cooking show called Box Mac about, where we review every single macaroni and cheese.
I've seen a few of those. Yeah.
Even that can be a tough sell to people because they're like, I don't know about cooking, but it's hard to describe. But what we've built something that has lore to it.
It's almost more about waiting for the noodles to boil, isn't it, than the actual any of that. Just the conversation.
That's where all the it's shot by a professional cinematographer.
Mm-hmm.
I edit it meticulously, and there's been hundreds of them. So not a day has gone by since I was 14 where I wasn't working hard on some creative venture. If I'm in a car on the way to a family trip or something, I'm editing. This has just been my whole life. And, but our channel was a really small channel, the main one, Red Cow Entertainment. We decided to create a clips channel because we wanted to put up montages and clips of Box Mac and other things, clips from our movies. So we called it Red Cow Pods and Clips. That's actually where this Bimmy video, this James Rolfe video, went up. And then quickly we kind of had to refashion it into its own thing because that's where all the subscribers suddenly were coming from. So that led me to saying, I better, if I'm going to have an influx of people paying attention to me or who are interested in going to the next video or checking out the next thing, I better at least try to explain this 23 years as though it's coherent.
Oh yeah.
And which of course it's not. The kinds of projects we've been working on have been so different, and we've had so many different collaborators over the years. But I take what, if you go to either one of our channels, Red Cow Entertainment or Red Cow Arcade, the front page has a 16-minute little documentary from our first feature all the way up to now and everything in between. And I hope that it not only tells the story well and gives you a sense of who we are, and so that when you listen to the podcast, for instance, you're like, oh, okay, I now have context for, because we got that question a lot. We got that question a lot, which was, well, who the fuck are you?
Yeah, like what, what do you mean? Are you like an entertainment company? Like, I don't know, but yeah, it's how many people actually are in your umbrella?
In Red Cow Entertainment, it's it's been kind of a revolving door, but I would say the kind of primary ones, of course, have been EJ, who's my co-host on Red Cow Arcade. John Hunt, lovingly known as Junt, who's my co-host on BoxMac, my wife Nina, and then our friends Zach and Matt, who are kind of like crew, creative, production design, audio. They're just always there. These guys
are they like in the background a little bit? Like, are they ever appear in your productions?
Yeah, I mean, like for a show like BoxMac, everybody pops on camera at some point or another. It's one of those, the format of the show is one where you can see like there's like a wide and you can see the cameraman come in and out and you can see everybody's lapel mics and, it's kind of meant to be open a bit. That's John's kitchen.
Okay. I was going to say, it's a pretty nice kitchen. It's got that nice island there and all that.
Yeah, I remember that it's the apartment adjacent to his childhood home. And he asked his dad, can I just have the apartment? And he did. And then John, he reconstructed it from scratch. Nice. So like that recently I got a question. They were like, why is the lighting so good in that room? I was like, it has nothing to do with video production. That was John wanting nice overhead lights.
His kitchen. What the hell was I got off of my own thought. We moved.
Do you want to ask about John's air conditioning or anything like that?
No. And John's the big dude, right? And he's the one you think, didn't you say he's like not an inspiration, but like one of the nicest, funniest people that you know?
Yeah, he's one of my oldest, dearest. He's an incredibly special person in my life. That's putting it mildly. Like John, the quick story of how I met him was I was on a track team. And his sister was on that same track team. She was like 2 years older than me. He's 6 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And I remember she was like, "Hey, you seem," I was like 14, he was 20, and she was like, "Hey, my older brother is really into video production and all this nerd shit that you seem to like, and you're kind of funny. Like, I think my older brother would get a real kick out of you.
You want to be in one?"
And I remember what's that?
Was he like, "You want to be in one?"
Yeah, well, so I had written a script called "I Need to Lose 10 Pounds," and it was about it was like this outrageous kind of Dadaist comedy about like fat people, but then I found out not only could the guy of course be in the movie, but I found out he was a musician, he was a technologist, he knew way more about video production than you got to remember this is like 2000, mm-hmm. So there's no such thing as ingesting video into your home computer and doing anything with it. There's no YouTube. Adobe Premiere existed, but it just started existing, and another kind of tangent off of that is I remember in 8th grade, I asked my parents for a computer that could edit video for Christmas, and neither of my parents knew what the fuck I was talking about.
That's a big ask too for a parent.
Yeah, 8th grade, 2000. And my dad's a hydraulic mechanic, and like my mom's a school nurse. They don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And they certainly, I was diving into B movies and stuff at the time. They don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And but all I knew is that I wanted to get video into a computer, and I wanted to mess with it. I wanted to make like South Park style animations. I was doing that with the home video camera. And they went to CompUSA, old computer store that's way out of business by now, and they bought like a consumer Hewlett Packard, and then they were like, "Oh, we'll put like a video, we'll put a capture card in it, a video capture card,
FireWire, right?"
Yeah, well, you know what? It was one generation before FireWire.
Yeah, it was just straight up like USB A or something. I forget what that was.
Yeah, I think it supported RGB, and it went, it went to whatever that was for your camcorder. And that was the year I bought my first camcorder, this little JVC thing. And and then we couldn't make it work. My dad had bought some kind of version of Avid, some kind of like home version of Avid, and then we started looking at the Adobe forums, and we ran into this. There was this guy from Montreal named Francois Dompierre, and he was selling a Pinnacle DV capture card, and for $500. And we were like, oh, maybe, I said, maybe this is the thing we need. And my dad goes, no, ask him if he'll build a whole computer for us and ship it to us. Because he just wanted somebody to take complete responsibility. So the guy goes, yeah, you know what? Ship the computer to me for $1,000, in 2000 money. For $1,000, I'll re-outfit the whole computer. And then how about this? You can come up, strangers from the United States that we met on the internet. You can come up. Your boy will spend the weekend in our apartment.
Oh, that's fine.
And I'll teach him how to edit video. And what do you say? And my dad's like, sounds good. And we drove up.
You were what? How old?
I was 14.
Okay, yeah.
And we drove up to Montreal. My parents had like a little vacation for a weekend, and I stayed with this really nice French couple. They made me breakfast, and they taught me how to edit video. And,
that's really a story right there.
It really did go that way. And so I come back to the States, the next week being like, I'm ready. I've done what no one in this town can do. I've gone to Montreal to learn,
And did they teach you on your new computer basically too?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's even better.
And it was with Premiere, which I use to this day. So I was always a Premiere guy. I was never like a Final Cut guy, never really an Avid guy. I mean, I used Final Cut 7 for like a little bit, but, cause it was basically Premiere. And then I meet this John Hunt fellow. And so it turns out this guy a couple miles away from me already was knee deep in all this stuff. And he's a bit older. He can drive. He's a musician. I met some of his friends. He met some of my friends. We started making movies. We had this dream to make a feature film that ended up happening. You get a little older and the age gap matters less and less. And, but yeah, like John was the guy who like taught me how to drive. And, he's the one where a childish dream to be a filmmaker turned into something possible. If I hadn't met him, if he didn't pop up in my life, this guy in my town, that doesn't happen. And then, around the exact same time, I meet my girlfriend who becomes my wife, and she's extremely...
The whole trajectory changed just from one little event, the butterfly effect right there. Your whole life swings in a new direction.
Yeah.
You always had creative aspirations, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was always a creative kid. I think I remember I was always fascinated by do it yourself, make your own behind the scenes. And, pre-DVD especially, seeing like here's how they made Toy Story or here's how they made Jurassic Park. That was you had to you had to catch those on TV sometimes, and or you had to subscribe to magazines or whatever. And when DVD came out, especially when like things like the Lord of the Rings special features and
those are good.
I just ate up every commentary track. DVD. I really romanticize and miss like early 2000s, mid 2000s DVD. That was
because you would go through every part of the special things. You'd play the crappy games that were on there where it was just like click things. You'd do everything.
I'll always remember Requiem for a Dream, which was a movie. That was like a big kind of indie movie, and that came out in 2000. That I think like showed much like Donnie Darko or Fight Club. It's kind of in that group of films, but it was one of the first movies I saw that showed that there, that you could really innovate visuals to tell a story. And I remember that DVD was designed like an infomercial, which of course has almost nothing to do with the film itself. And and there were special features. There were like Easter eggs all over the place. Yeah, I really miss the art of DVD. I was thinking like that would be if nobody has ever done a DVD review YouTube channel. I mean like in-depth reviews of
every aspect of it.
That would be really good.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, at least. But I mean, there's got to be something. Maybe
so we could do it. We could do it. $1 billion idea.
Yeah, there it is.
It's $100 a year.
For me, like the Simpsons DVDs was my introduction to like audio commentaries. Like we all watched all those, probably listened to every one of them.
Definitely.
Especially if you grew up. I was born in 82. You were what, 86?
86.
From what I think I heard, yeah. So yeah, we're not super far apart, so we should have roughly the same like media
Yeah.
influences and all that stuff growing up.
Although
So
I'm an old millennial. You're on, I would say, probably more on the tail end of Gen X. Is that?
I'm technically the oldest millennial possible.
Okay.
And my buddy who's like a year or two older than me, he is so different in terms of the internet and technology that I think that like 80, 81, that's like, because I think I am considered millennial still. I graduated in 2000. I grew up, the internet was like when I was in high school, all that stuff. I don't know the cutoff.
John was born in 80, and he and I, we share a lot of culture, but there are times, even to this day, I'm 37 and he's like whatever he is, 43, and I don't know, I'll find that like he's very, for a guy who's a technologist, he's very resistant to new technology.
Oh yeah,
in a way that I'm not.
My buddy, he's like, I'm like, why don't you just look it up on YouTube? He's like, I don't use YouTube. I'm like, you could literally see anything you want, anytime you want. He still watches TV when TV tells him that things are on. I'm like,
disappointment viewing, like an old boomer. Yeah.
He knows it's there. He just refuses.
Yeah.
It's just he's just resistant to it.
Like I'm still like, of the generation. I'm young enough that like I dread phone calls and would really prefer to text and that sort of thing. Yeah. I'm not when I'm at work. I'm not the guy who's like, is there any way we can just jump on a quick call about this?
Let me see what I was. I know how you started your channel, but like, what was some of your earliest creative works, your Snicks flicks, if you will?
Oh yeah.
What you still have everything? Obviously, you seem like the kind of person who would keep all this stuff.
Yes.
I don't remember if I uploaded everything I've ever. No, definitely not. But like, I started.
Are you a filmmaker?
In 2003, I think it was. I made the film in 2000. 2003, I was in the Cleveland Indie Film Festival. Nothing big. It just we just showed it off. That's so yeah, great. I made a DVD back in like 2000, 2002. That span about 2 years.
What did you make the DVD with? Encore?
Adobe Premiere.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
And After Effects and Particle Illusion. Those are the three programs I remember.
I haven't thought about Particle Illusion in a really.
I know, but yeah, I was back then. It was such people are like, how did you do that? I'm like, when I learned you could draw frame by frame on a video, I was like, infinite possibilities. So exactly. I wrote scenes based on things you could do and stuff like that. So yeah, it's Disaster Squad 2. So I'll throw that link to you some other time. But yeah, what was your earliest work?
Well, I guess it depends how to categorize. So yes, you're right. On redcowentertainment.com, I went through a painstaking process of. I designed a I basically hand drew a website where I was like, this would be how I would prefer in an ideal world to catalog all of the material. And I hired like somebody on Upwork to design our website. So our website's in really good shape. And there's two ways that videos are categorized, either by year or by genre. Mm-hmm. And so for me, like the children's stuff, the kind of the pre-high school, pre-middle school
the
stuff.
Middle schooler with a camera stuff.
Yeah, that's we came back from Disney World, and that was when we saw the Indiana Jones show. They make it apparent how, like, they show you the whole scene. He runs away from the ball, or he has the big fist fight on the scaffolding or whatever, and then they reset the whole set and show you, hey, look, it's just a movie, and that's just a sound effect when somebody clapping when he punches someone. And here's how we fake a punch and all that. So I went home with my parents' camcorder. There is a video of like I'm a Ninja Turtle, and it's just trying to kind of reenact some of what I learned there. I also remember we had a family computer in like 1991. It was a Tandy.
That's early, yeah.
Yeah. My parents were convinced that it was necessary for like life success, like get a computer. And I think it was big money. I think it was like $2,000 or which was probably not tenable for the household.
And it probably ended up just getting used for CGA games, like garbage. That was.
Yeah, it ran this operating system called Deskmate, and
sounds familiar.
So Tandy was Radio Shack, so they went to Radio Shack and they bought a computer. That's what happened.
Tandies were great though. I liked them.
Yeah, well, they had a little operating system that not everything did. Yeah, I remember there was a Paint program. And there was a word processor. It wasn't Microsoft Word. I don't know what it was, but there was a word processor. And I decided to try to novelize an episode of Power Rangers
I
And
don't know why that's funny.
it was absurd. Because I remember I didn't have a way to watch. I had like an episode on VHS, and I could only play it downstairs, and the family computer was upstairs. So I'd run downstairs, watch some of it, commit it to memory, run upstairs, and try to like write in narrative prose about like.
Then Rita Repulsa clenched her fist in rage.
Yeah. Jason was steadfast in his commitment to stop Rita.
That's very quaint. That is a very middle schooler thing to do.
Yeah. And really the whole thing was, when I finish this book, I'll be able to print it. And when I print it, I'll be able to spiral bind it. And when I spiral bind it, I'll be able to draw a cover. And then I'll have a book. I'll have written a book.
It'll be official.
It'll be a real book. So that was a big one. I think I had made an attempt to write a couple screenplays around that time. And then, yeah, when South Park comes out, that was revelatory.
That was a big deal, yeah.
Not only was it subversive and showing us something in comedy we've never quite seen before, because Simpsons was really instrumental in kind of like evolving. I think like the entire culture's sense of humor, The Simpsons is responsible for. But then South Park like takes it to this new level where you can't believe
it was stuff you'd never seen before or heard.
Yeah, and I was like going through puberty right at that time, and so it was just like hitting all the right sensors and you find out like these guys did the entire pilot with construction paper. And I was like, well, what does that mean? It was like, well, it's the stop motion thing. Oh, I've heard of stop motion. I've seen Nightmare Before Christmas. It's like, yeah, but this is much simpler and much dumber and much crappier. It's like, oh, that's right up my alley. I remember the guy who wrote the screenplay to my fourth film, Having Fun Up There, he and I were talking once, and he said something like, he's a musician, and he was like, the Ramones are responsible for so many musicians because people heard the Ramones and thought, well, okay, then I can do that.
Yeah.
And same thing with Trauma, and for me, or he was like nobody watches A Clockwork Orange, or a Stanley Kubrick movie and goes like, oh, I can do it too, it's just too high a bar. So I had come up with my Snicks flicks started around this time. I had made I tried to make an animated kind of South Park ripoff called I'm So Happy, and that's on the website.
Nice. I gotta check that out.
It's in some form. And then like once I connected with John, we had made a series of like school projects, and anytime 7th or 8th grade, anytime they were like, and if you want to make a video, you can make a video.
That was like a woo, like as a kid, yeah, like that's like ooh, video project. I can't wait. Because
not only will it be fun, it's also a way around doing something more academic.
Yep.
It's something I can do with my friends, and when I'm done with it, I'll be able to show it in a classroom. The whole class will get to watch it.
That was one of the things that you said that I connected with. You were like, and you put that VHS tape in your backpack, and you're like, today's going to be a special day. And I was like, yeah, 100%, 100%.
I'm gonna get to screen a movie, like, whether they will like it or not.
And that's one of those things that like kind of started my interest in it. I always had an interest in art and drawing, creativity, anything like that. I always have to create something. But like once I made a school project that people like loved, like they were all laughing. I'm like, we should do another one. Like we should keep them. We just kept doing it. I haven't done it for 20 years, but I
remember running it. By the time we go to try to make a feature, though, that was like, because we were just too dumb, and we had equipment, we had tripods, we had cameras, we could all edit. We had a musician. It was like, well, we're all making short films all the time. I remember we were. This is a really good one. We were asked to do, because we became like known as the videographers in the town. We grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, like by the beach, and like the public access people said like, hey, could those guys from the high school like make a show for us? We were asked to do a show called Devil's Pocket, and it was about like I guess Devil's Pocket was named after some geographic something or other on the coast.
I was gonna say, it sounds like a location.
Yeah, I still to this day don't know what it is. And but John wrote this like beautiful like introduction music to it that was like half National Geographic, half like Sunday Night News. And yeah, we made it our plaything. We made a total jerk off comedy show of our own. And we paid service to the topics we were supposed to cover.
Yeah, you're like, let's just touch on this and then go back to our sketch.
Mostly we made horrible sketches, and I remember screening it for the first time. No, okay, you want to hear a good? Here, I'll give you an exclusive. Um,
Ooh.
I remember there was this old lady named Mrs. Sheehan, and she was like one of the kookier kind of like artistic people.
Careful,
that
she's watching. No.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Mrs. Sheehan. Um, and she was the one kind of egging us on to do it. And she goes, "What about like a cartoon character? What about like somebody who can kind of like pop up and give like a fun fact?" And we all told her like, "What are we gonna do about this?" She wants us to do what, like a character, and we said, "Why don't we just make it her?" We said, why don't we just call it Mrs. Sheehan's Fun-Filled Facts? And yeah, John put together this like package of explosions and again, like a lot of sound effects and stuff. And then we just had this old woman from our town pop up and say something really boring and go away.
Was she like filmed doing it, or did you just use a little
We filmed
still
her.
of her?
We filmed
Okay.
her. We told her, we're going to make you the character. And she was like, "Oh, okay."
Okay.
And like, "It's time for Mrs. Sheehan's Fun-Filled Facts." And
She explodes out of the corner and pops in.
that's what, yeah. But we were 14. I remember screening it to a bunch of elderly people, the ones that were supposed to be in charge of this whole thing, and I remember them being so bummed out. And
Bummed out. Why?
well, it was like 20 minutes of just 14-year-olds having fun, and it wasn't the point. And
they're like, "Why? I'm glad we didn't pay you for this."
yeah, right. $1 million out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember they were just like drinking like scotch and staring at it.
We might as well get fucked up if we're gonna watch this crap.
And then we did one other episode about like it was just like a montage about water, and then we quit. We like rage quit.
What, you say water is not that exciting to do a topic about?
And we set it to like Final Fantasy music or something we had no license to. And
oh yeah.
But yeah, the whole time for me, all of it was in service of we're going to make this feature film. That's what we're going to do. I had this real, I would describe it to you as like, I'm sure when you were as a creative yourself, like when you can remember times when you were young where you had like your entire life was that creative project. Like I felt like if I didn't make this movie, I was going to die.
Yeah, I have to be making something at all times. Still to this day, I just haven't made a movie since 2004. But,
yeah,
you know,
I'm the same way where I have to keep my brain busy. I have to keep creative and stuff. But I would say that 37-year-old me with a child and with a wife and with a job, I'm not like I have to do it or I'll die. But when you're a teen though, you have nothing else except for
yes. But like today, it's a great hobby to have because it keeps you entertained when you're not doing all those other things. And I feel old saying this. Just imagine someday you can say, "My daughter is 18. She's turning 18 like next week."
Oh wow! Holy shit!
Mm-hmm.
Now,
that makes me feel old.
On the podcast last week, which the clip for this hasn't gone up yet, but I talked in depth about how every once in a while I'll be asked about like, "Hey, how can you put your like 6-year-old daughter in the videos?" And she kind of just tags along for some of the videos. She's not the star of them. We're not monetizing off of her. But to me, it's like it's a family affair. It's always been a family affair, and she's part of my family.
Especially if your wife's in it.
Yeah, my wife's to everybody. We're if I love you, I'm gonna put you in a video, and that's just how it's gonna be. Did you was your daughter like ever part of your creative projects?
No, well, she helps test. I'm more of a game programmer nowadays. She tests those. Like she played a few things, that I do there. But yeah, mostly she is the artist also now. So she does her own things. She draws a lot. She does all that stuff. But yeah, she wasn't alive when I made movies. She I had her in 2005. So, and I finished my last movie in 04 or 03 or whatever that was. I think it was 04. It got copyrighted.
But could you ever collab? Could she create designs for new games or anything like that?
She's definitely drawn pictures. I don't know. My style and her style don't mix that well. I haven't asked her if she wanted to make something for my games. I'm always, I guess I probably could very easily be like, hey, you want to like design an enemy or something for the next game? Yeah,
I just, for me, like the people I've worked with always, it's as I remember, I would try to drag people along for the ride. And at something I heard a lot was like, is there any way we can just hang out and not make a movie? Like, or, the reason I'm here to make a movie with you, Frankie, is because I just kind of want to hang out, but you're taking it really seriously. You seem to actually want to make a movie.
Yeah, I remember you saying something about that too, that I was like, yeah, that's true, where it's like, I don't even care if we work on this thing, and you're like, oh, I do.
Yeah.
It's like, I kind of, how about we get everything we can done and hang out afterwards? How's that sound?
Yeah, well, because I always was gratified by productivity.
Progress.
Yeah, being productive.
Mhm.
And I mean, I remember James talking about having that same challenge, but then as time has gone on, maybe I share a little bit more of that now, where I'm like, well, the thing that we'll all remember is how we felt when we were making these things. Playing them back and watching them, yeah, that's how that's more for people we don't know, but
Oh
for
yeah.
us, it's really about how we felt when we did it.
And like when you think back to the earliest stuff he did, it's like it's such a simple time. Like it was so good. That being a kid with nothing else in the world to do and just working on movies, I can't think of a better time like to do that kind of thing. It was so fun.
Yeah, yeah. To this day, when the fall rolls around in New England, this sounds like so like romantic, but it's true. When like the crisp air is in New England, like it always reminds me of making movies with my friends.
Mhm.
And like whenever September rolls around, I'm like, anything we can shoot, we should all be shooting something.
Well, when I say I made movies, don't think that anything I made is great. It's very guys running around holding the camera or a tripod when we could, but like we didn't have. It's not that good.
Are
It's
you
like
have you
2
encountered
hour.
have you encountered our show No Views? Do you know this one yet?
No, I haven't seen that.
It's kind of buried, So on the main channel, yeah, Box Mac is one of our more prominent shows, but we also second to that would be What's in Junt's Cart. So it's John. John loves a bargain, and it's hard to describe just how much of a character this guy is and just how sincere and authentic he is, and that really is what makes his content so compelling. So that's another show. We've done a lot of different web series. Like you can go to our playlist and see all the web series, but one that I actually am partial to, and we've only made maybe like 20 of them, is called No Views. And what we do is we realized, YouTube is not really the place for narrative film. People don't upload their narrative work to YouTube, and audiences don't really go to YouTube to watch narrative work, right? They go to Disney Plus, Netflix, HBO Max for narrative.
They go to YouTube for slop.
Yeah, for nonfiction, for information, for parasocial relationships with podcasters.
Yeah.
But they don't go for narratives, and there's a good reason for that. It's because most of it would be no budget or low budget stuff, and that has a bad track record, right? Like that stuff has such a bad track record that it has. I've often run into the problem of like trying to interest people in watching my stuff, and they're like, "Is it like that other shit I've seen?" I don't know. I'm showing you like some work that I did 15 years into the endeavor, so maybe it's better than that. But anyway, I thought even though nobody watches narratives on YouTube, there's got to be millions of them uploaded, right?
Oh
and
yeah.
So we we ended up going to Vimeo more specific, because Vimeo really has this like the thesis films and reels and college projects, and we filter by least viewed, and different genres normally, and normally less than 5 minutes, and we watch them right there on the show, and we review them in depth. So if you enjoy listening if you enjoy listening to me talk about like what makes James Rolfe's nerd room not function, maybe you would enjoy listening to me watch a random ass no viewed narrative movie and talking about how to improve it.
I put you guys on while I'm at work. I deliver, and
Nice.
yeah, I'm just like I love to hear people talking, so
Yeah.
it's great to have more in that line.
You do that. You listen to the clips mostly, the podcast clips.
Yeah, like I basically just go to the next one, sort of. If it's a topic I don't care about too much, I think even today I was working, I was listening to you talk about She-Hulk. I'm like, I know it sucks. I don't care about it.
Yeah. No, fair
but
enough.
I like all the stuff about Kevin Smith is really interesting. We're both, I'm sure, inspired by Kevin Smith. I'm sure he was the opening up to the public the possibilities of making films.
Yep.
And another one for me is Sam Raimi. I love Army of Darkness. That was like my favorite movie as a kid.
Yep.
Loved it.
Yep.
But like, what has he made lately? I don't even know. I haven't paid attention.
Multiverse of Madness. They let him do that.
But yeah, I'm not that into newer movies. I just haven't really. Nothing's grabbed me.
Yeah.
Do you like newer stuff?
That is not for nothing, but that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about She-Hulk. We're not talking about as much as possible on the podcast, we try to take some topic and then abstract it into a discussion about a broader topic. So like, for instance, using James Rolfe as the most obvious example, we're not there to like, hey, let's just take a dump on this guy. It's more like to talk about longevity on YouTube, or technical setups, or what does it mean to have a family and balance this stuff? That's more interesting to us.
Like the pathos around the entire subject. It's not just it wasn't just
Yeah.
about She-Hulk. I know it's more like, who the fuck's watching this crap? It's like is anybody even watching? It's like the
Yeah,
ratings.
what would motivate this company that ought to know what people do and don't want? What would motivate them to make something that's so divisive, that's so poor quality? What would and then you're like, oh, maybe it's just a fuck up, right? Maybe it's just a one off. Maybe they just got pathological and they lost.
It keeps going.
Yeah, and then it's like, wow, I'm like 3 years into the endeavor. Like, what's going on? Something is, and you can see it pretty like 2019. There were still pretty darn good movies, and right around COVID. Well, 2019 is when Disney Plus launches.
Yeah.
And then, so suddenly the business model becomes not let's make the best product possible and put it out in a theater and try to get as many people into the theater as possible. Suddenly it's more about how do we gain and keep subscribers? And to do that, you need big IP and you need to have content every week, right? So that changes the product. It means they rush it out more. It means that they elongate things that could be truncated.
Yeah, it's all drawn.
One explanation.
Yeah. And you said something else that I remember thinking, like, yeah, I mean, that's 100% true. Where you said, like, no kids today are like, I want to be a filmmaker. It just doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
It's not like a dream that anybody seems to have anymore. It's all just, I want to be a streamer. I want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah, because influencer, like, content creator. Yeah.
You don't have to. There's as much as it is creation, doing this, even just this, it does feel like, yes, I am creating something for other people to view, but at the same time it doesn't give you that creative fulfillment of making a story or making so it's like I feel like they're missing out on something better by just aspiring to bullshit in front of a camera.
James gets made fun of for this, where he calls his videos his films.
Yeah.
he says, like, I've made 500 films, and
like,
it's this what do you call it, this nominal problem of like, well, what's a film versus a video? What's content versus, whatever. And obviously he's got scope creep on what a film is, but I share what I do share with him is because we're both old. It started with making films, and making content or videos was kind of like a fun bonus thing. And to this day, I sort of look at it that way. I sort of look at it as like, oh, this is just to augment the big projects I'm going to do. And we don't do is like, we haven't made a feature in a while, but it's always very important to me that every year, because now we're going into like 9 years of heavy YouTube, of like constant uploads. It's really important to me that every year there are major projects. Like there are either like a big Halloween special, or there's a big kind of like mini documentary, or something that kind of goes way outside of what we've been doing normally. Around New Year's time, I'll sit down and I'll make a list of like, here's the content that if I make nothing else, I want to make sure that I make these. These have been
at least this year, like get some of the stuff knocked out.
And that kind of scratches the itch of like, I ought to be making something that's not just me blabbing on a podcast.
Well, God, my YouTube journey started in like 2006. I didn't really create much, but I did throw a couple of garbage little things out. But like, it's been a really, really weird YouTube experience. What has your experience on YouTube been like so far? And it's been long, right?
Yeah, well, so we made our features. I made this 10 Pounds movie I've been talking about. Then we made this movie called Abo the Hue Monkey, about a half man, half ape. And then I went to Los Angeles, came back, made Sexually Frank, which was, you could argue, is my most successful movie. It's like kind of like an indie drama from 2010, But yeah, I'm a fan. It's got a lot of heartfelt emotion in it. And then we made Having Fun Up There, which was our fourth narrative film, and that went to the Austin Film Festival. And it was around that, and so now I'm on number 4, right? I've been nonstop making feature films. We started podcasting, like audio only, and that was just fun because. And we had no listeners. I mean, I don't know, 50 or something, but just sitting down with friends, no video, no editing, and throwing something up. And then like, even those 50 people listening and tweeting at you is kind of like, oh, that was fun. Yeah, that's a little dopamine hit. Normally I have to wait 3 years before I hear any feedback, about my project. So we did that kind of like to get people to hang in there. And then the podcasting led to John saying, hey, maybe this is a podcast, maybe I don't know what this is, but what if I dressed up in a big fat chef's costume And we tried macaroni. You know, we'll go to the store, we'll buy every mac and cheese, and we'll try them all. And I think he thought there's got to be like 15, and we'll try all.
Around
15.
what year is this?
It was 2014.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, and I said, okay, yeah, sure, maybe, John. I don't know. You know, I thought it was kind of like he was like, we could
Then
shoot it on
280 episodes later or whatever.
yeah, he was like, we could shoot it on iPhones. I don't know. And our friend EJ had kind of been coming into the fold by that point. We had graduated from this program together, this Masters of Fine Arts program. And he was a cinematographer. He was an animator. He was a really funny guy. He wanted to make his own content. He was making his own content. It was really good content, you know. And he wanted to join forces. And I remember he had heard the Box Mac idea, and he said, yeah, why don't we all get together sometime? We'll shoot that. You know, it'll just be fun. We'll eat some mac and cheese together. And, you know, true to form, he brings over all the lenses. We've got the audio packs from the feature. We have this filming infrastructure from all these other projects, and we shoot our first episode of Box Mac as though it's one of our feature films, and then edit it as such. And we all were tickled by giving this concept more than it deserved.
Mm-hmm. Going the extra mile for production of something so simple.
Yeah. And then I got this flight of fancy where I was like, you know, it'd be really fun if, like, you know, we get to episode 15 or something and it's Halloween time, and all of a sudden we're not reviewing mac and cheese. It's called Box Mac 15 or something, but suddenly you're just in an episode of like Tales from the Crypt, and it's like a narrative about John, and you know, it would be a total mind fuck if anybody's actually watching this. And I think we had been getting like 300 viewers by that point, and then some kind soul, posted our episode that was Canada versus the USA to Reddit. And it ended up on the front page of /r/videos for like 48 hours. And the majority of comments were, oh my God, that guy is so big. He's going to die. I hope he dies. And then they all went away. And then about 2,000 people stayed. And those 2,000 people,
internet, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's kind of like an attrition period where it's like if you're not interested, you leave.
Got to wade through that to get further.
And then from that point on, we had like, and there was a couple of kind of big YouTube celebrities who knew the show and shouted us out on their shows. And that brought in an influx. It was never the algorithm that brought people in. It was always like a big Reddit post or word of mouth or whatever. And I think, you know, we steadily gained subscribers, not rapidly. We're almost at 20,000 now. But you know, we've maintained whatever 2 to 3 to 4 to 5,000 views per episode, more for certain ones, and we diversified the content a lot. You know, which is not a good strategy, but it's what we wanted to do.
That's the hardest thing for me is the whole diversifying all your crap, because it's hard to keep people focused on what you're doing. Yeah,
the smart money would be make a channel called Box Mac.
Mm-hmm. Have it separate, but I did that. I'll go into me in a second, but keep going.
Yeah, well, just so you know, it satisfied us. It was like we have thousands of people watching. We are able to be very creative. No one's putting us in a box. You know, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And we were all just loving hanging out, and we were. I mean, the show was getting nuts. We started being sent mac and cheeses from Scotland, from Japan, from Norway, from Iceland.
Got plenty of ammo for future episodes there. Yeah.
Yeah, just like, you know, we thought there were 15. I mean, there's thousands. And we started going to mac and cheese festivals, and we, you know, started kind of like branding ourselves like we were the local mac and cheese fucking celebrities. And, you know, we were having a blast doing it. And then when we would do Junt's Cart, when we would do, like profile our flea market, or where people started to know like, oh, those are, they didn't know that we were shooting at the time, but then they would watch YouTube and they go, oh, yeah. And I remember the flea market people recognized us when we went back, and they were like, you're the ones who made that video. Yeah. So we're having a blast. But then it was, to answer your question more directly about my experience on YouTube, we started doing the Patreon podcast. It was really just to pull in people for Patreon. We stumble into this James Rolfe thing, and what I've learned is YouTube incentivizes you to upload a lot, and the only way you're going to upload a lot is if it's low effort, and you make money off of watch time, and the only way you're going to get watch time is if people are willing to listen to you or watch you in kind of the cracks of their lives, on the train ride, at the office, whatever. And so really YouTube, I think, is first and foremost a video podcast site.
Yes.
It's what people want to pop on. It's what's going to make you the most money, and it's what's possible to upload on a regular basis. And so we've had much more success with the podcast and the podcast clips, and a lot less on the other channel. But between the two of them, again, I feel really fulfilled, you know.
But it's good times, right? So that's and what do you do for your? You don't have to go too personal with anything, but what's your main source of income? What do you do?
Yeah, I run an IT department.
Okay.
And so
I think I knew that. I just don't remember.
Yeah, so that's a huge part of my life because it's a very, it's a really demanding job. So I work nonstop. That's my, I'm
never bored either. Like that's one thing I'm like, I'm never bored ever.
No. When my kid's bored, I'm like, what?
What? Yeah. Just the whole world out there. Go have fun with it before you're bogged down by projects all day.
But to give you the kind of the less sunny side, and maybe you relate to this, there are definitely times where I have felt like I'm a little bit too much in service, like in servitude of the fans, where, for instance, they'll send us like 10 humongous boxes, and they're like, unbox all of these, and I have a bunch of shows I want you to do, and because we've had a small audience, we've been able to service just about everybody. Like if you send us something, we'll open it, we'll talk, laugh about it, whatever, and after a while, as that's scaled, it's become a little bit untenable. And then as we've made more shows, like you end up with more fans who are like, you haven't done a Pewtersmith in a long time. Like, where's Pewtersmith? Or you haven't uploaded a podcast in 2 days. Where was my podcast? And you start getting, I can't imagine what it's like to actually be a big channel. Cause I feel very like, hey, leave me alone. I just want one night where my wife and I get to watch a show together, where I'm not editing.
My experience is, also, the second the day you put a new video out, they're already like, well, where's the next one?
Isn't that funny?
I'm like, I just uploaded this. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
a little unhealthy.
Do you get that ever?
Yeah, no, all the time. Well, because the more common one would be you upload a new video and they go, yeah, this is nice, but I thought it was going to be this other thing. And
you can't please everyone.
So you give up at some point.
If you say I love vanilla, people will be like, well, why do you hate chocolate?
I subscribe for chocolate.
Yeah, you can't win. So the point, I guess, just ignore everything, make what you want to make, and if people want to follow it, they'll follow it.
I also, because again, we don't have huge audiences, I tend to engage in the comments and stuff, which is ill-advised.
Yeah.
But I make the stuff to engage. And so if somebody, sometimes I'm competitive in the comments, sometimes I'm genuinely hurt, though that's uncommon. They'd have to go after something kind of nasty. And other times I feel like they just misunderstood something I said and I want to clarify it. So I do a lot of that. The one of the ones that I've been seeing lately that makes me laugh is we'll have people who are big fans and we'll say something they didn't like, or as the kids say, a bad take, which is funny, by the way, because everybody knows that it's kind of unacceptable to say that's a bad opinion, because everybody kind of agrees that you're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your take. That's how they get around it.
Yeah, use the different terminology.
They use different terminology, and they're able to say they're able to say your opinion sucks without arguing with you.
Yeah.
But the thing I've been seeing lately is I'm a big fan of Red Cow, but I don't like this. It's their little way of saying, like, you're on thin ice, pal. Like, that's strike one.
You got one more video to change my mind, or I'm hitting that unsubscribe button.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, spare me your threats about unsubscribing. It will not sway me.
There was an old video. I forget who made it. It was like a guy who used to make cartoons. Like, you better make a cartoon or I'll unsubscribe. And he's like,
Harry Partridge. Yeah.
Yes. And he's like, doesn't really require anything to say subscribe, but like, I love that take. It's like, it requires nothing to just stay subscribed. Even if I make nothing in the future, you could just stay subscribed.
Well, isn't it interesting? I I can understand if you're listening or watching somebody who shares none of your values, at some point you're like, why am I listening to this person? Like, I feel like they're bad for me, but if you're listening to a podcaster on a daily basis, like, they better say some stuff that you disagree with. Otherwise, what the fuck are we like?
Don't just eat their slop all day.
Yeah. So I would think that it's baked into the pie, that it's something that you would expect to like don't let a couple of disagreements, turn you away. Like,
not to mention, one of the healthiest things in the world is hearing a bunch of stuff you don't agree with and being
yeah,
fine with it. Like, you need
right.
to be able to do that.
It's important.
So I'm hoping that, the world grows up a little bit out of the YouTube comments section, but
I guess that maybe the internet made this problem worse,
Yes, because you can be anonymous. Like,
Yeah.
most people won't say this stuff to your face. So.
Right. Or
But,
then they can curate their social lives better. So
yeah.
It used to be if if one of your friends disagreed with you on a bunch of stuff, you're like, well, what am I going to do? Get new friends?
Yeah.
but online you can be like, there's a million people to listen to. I'm not going to listen to somebody I disagree with.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think people with you probably get conflicted because when you say something slightly controversial, it also doesn't really sound like you're taking a direct side. You have this way of speaking where it's like, I don't remember a good example, but when you're talking about like Kevin Smith giving up weed,
Yeah,
you didn't really say one way or the other. Like, I'm against any kind of drugs. I'm against anything that screws with your brain, and I can tell you are too. But the way you speak does not disrespect one side or the other. You just speak what you think. It's not like, hey, you're a fucking idiot. But even if you think that,
I'm glad it comes off that way. It's because it's again, like, we could definitely sit here and roast people and but I don't know, like, I'm old enough to know how many times I've been wrong in my life.
Oh yeah.
I've been wrong a lot.
More.
and if I've been wrong this much, I'm going to be wrong again, and I'm going to be wrong again and again and again. And there's going to be recordings and video of me being wrong over and over again. And
you'll hear about it.
Yeah, and it's prudent to speak cautiously on issues that you don't have firsthand experience with. Like, I'm not a weed smoker myself, right? But at the same time, I don't want to be non-committal about, like, if I actually am feeling something here and now in this moment, and you're going to tune in and listen to me, I'm going to commit to some kind of statement on it. But I want to do, especially somebody like Kevin, a guy who has, like, I can't really like properly describe his contribution to the art world. I mean, he has a tremendous influence, and I love him.
And then Seth Rogen's contribution to destroying that.
Yeah, right. That's really what I resent, So I'm not like, that would be the last video I'd ever want to make, is like, hey, we're tune in and listen to me take a fat shit in Kevin Smith's mouth. Like, the guy has given me
see that title on the video.
Fat shit in Kevin's bracket.
But yeah, you have a way of speaking that, even though I can tell you are, taking a side, sort of, it's not, it's just the way you speak, and I respect that. That's
good. Yeah, well, there's probably a little too much of the, like, again, the internet does incentivize, like, take a side. The whole culture right now is like, take a side.
There's no gray.
Even if you're not all in with us, you're not in with them, are you? And again, I'm too old for that shit.
Yeah, you can't win, so don't try. Like, just play the game. Don't try to win. You can't.
Right. I agree.
But like, what? Oh yeah, I was gonna my YouTube. So wait, when did your kind of spark happen on YouTube, where it's like, okay, now we're starting to get some momentum going?
Yeah, that is undeniably that Reddit post with the.
Do you remember when that was?
November 2015.
Okay.
Yep.
That was a while. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we were. So that gave us enough.
That got the ball rolling.
That gave us enough of a bump to be like, okay, we're a real YouTube channel now. Like, we're not making it for ourselves anymore, and it didn't go through the roof or anything, but it stayed popular enough that it was fun and worth doing for a long time.
That's good. My my YouTube ride, I guess you could say, has been, what was it? I started in like 2006, and then up until 2019, I had like 100 subs, literally.
Oh, wow.
And I would just put all the music I write. I would put, just a trailer for a game I'm working on, stuff like that. I didn't know how to promote yourself, how to tag videos. I just put stuff, whatever. And I wish I would have put my movie on there earlier. I put it on there in like 2017 or 18 just to have it on there. But like, man, I wish I would have done it earlier because people. But anyway, then I made this. Yeah. I made a child. I happened to see a video made in Go Animate. Have you heard that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And in fact, Harry Partridge did a little.
Yes, Go Animate. So anyway, I was like, what are these? There's billions of them. Like all these kids are making so I made one just for the hell of it, and that video overnight basically got me like 1,000 subs, and then
Wow.
the next day I had another 1,000. Now I've got 50 grand after 2 years subs.
All
Or 3
for
years.
this one, mostly from this one animation?
Well, that started my ball saying, maybe I could play with this. Let's see what happens. So I started making, because I was like, these are children making these videos, and they have no, like, they have no plot. They have no, like, they're just making trash. So I'm like, what if I put some plot in there? What if I put a little thought into it? Because I'm a 40-year-old man. I'm not
Yeah.
So I
basically,
made YouTube trash into movies that now have like 3 million views each. And they suck, but like now, how do I promote my actual stuff, my games, my my creative works, because I have to feed the slot machine that I created.
Can I tell you something funny about that? There's a I don't remember his name, but there's this guy with a pretty popular YouTube channel. He's got a few 100,000 subs, and he's a young guy, like 22 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all just like 15-second memes. It's like Peter Parker bully memes and the sort of thing a 20-year-old enjoys. And he reached out because he had seen our podcast, and he was like, "Hey, we should collab. You could make a James Rolfe thing. I could do a meme about it. And I was like, yeah, okay. I don't know, maybe." Yeah, and he was really nice. He made a few cool things for us, but I remember I was like, well, what do you want to make? And he told me about, like, he wants to make a movie, and he wants to do all this stuff. And I was like, well, dude, you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. You have a captive audience. You should do all that. And he was like, oh no, I can't upload anything but these memes, or else it'll be a mass exodus. Like I've created my little, like, this is why they've subscribed, and I cannot stray from it. I'd have to make another channel. And it's like, and I have another channel, but nobody subscribes to it.
Here's the thing for me. I haven't found that to be false, but this show that I only have like 6-7 episodes, whatever it is, of only gets like 1,000 views each. I've got 50,000. So you'd think I would have a captive audience.
Right.
But no, like if it's not one of those, but also I haven't uploaded one of those Go Animate things in like half a year. It's been like 6 months and nobody's leaving.
People have stuck with it.
So it's like, and it still keeps giving me money, giving me, views every day. But like, I'll try to do something else like this. They don't watch. So what
do you suppose would happen if you were uploading something like this daily or weekly? Do you think that you would see more like unsubscribers?
I don't know, honestly, because but then like my games started becoming popular. Like some big streamers and people online were playing them, and now my games have like hundreds of thousands of downloads. And I was like, well, that's sweet. I don't make any money off them. They're free, so they're on Steam. Anybody can play them. But like the game stuff on YouTube also gets pretty good views, like several, tens of Ks, I don't know, up to 100K, I forget. But yeah, like I can't just put anything. I have a super diverse audience that I just don't know how to reach, basically.
Well, it sounds like you're not.
Like,
it sounds like you're not.
What's that?
It sounds like you're not too afraid at this point of upsetting the apple cart. You're like, well, look, if you're here, I'm grateful to have you, but I'm going to make what I want to make, and I would love for those of you who want to stick around to stick around.
Precisely. And I just have to understand that the comment section, as soon as I put this up, where's Rosie movie part 7 or whatever, where's the Caillou movie, whatever, stuff like that. You literally just have to get past the children and just make what you want to make. Yeah. So I was wondering how you were doing with diversifying your content. Like you got the podcast stuff, and then you got the Box Max stuff, and you got like how do you get people to come to each thing?
Yeah, well, it's really hard, and it's a constant challenge. But at this point, the podcast is what's bringing in all new humans, and the podcast also is not. It's not like it's something that we don't enjoy. It's a totally open format where we can talk about anything we want. The fact that we clip it means that we can also headline and thumbnail it any way we want.
Yep,
so we can
it's very advertisable.
Yeah, so we can pull people in, through the topics instead of like, hey, listen to 2 hours.
And you've been doing the face thumbnails.
Which it almost becomes kind of a meme of itself, like if you listen to the show, that we are kind of the anti-version of that, and so that's part of the fun of it. But then I think the most gratifying thing is when it's like you have a lot. I think any YouTube channel has like super passive subscribers. and then like casual subscribers, like people who will check out the majority of your content, but maybe not all of it. You know, the super passive ones are like, I'm here for one reason, and I'm like, you know, I'm on thin ice. I'm going to leave any moment. The casual ones are here for most of it. And then like at some point you have like alpha fans who are become really invested and get to know you really well. And it's been fun to, like, we will mention the other channel. We'll describe what it is. We'll let people know our history. We put together that video, but we're not advertising the hell out of it. We kind of let them discover it on their own. We kind of leave them alone and say, look, if you really enjoy listening to us this much, go, you know, there's a whole other, they'll find it.
And it's
then
there,
And then when they organically find it, it's really gratifying to hear people come back and be like I'll get these emails, these long-winded emails that are like, I held out a long time. I thought I just wanted to hear you talk about, you know, movies or James Rolfe or whatever. But my wife and I just binged Boxmack, and it's like one of our favorite YouTube channels. That's really, and then it turns into, can I buy your movie? And then hopefully what you've done is, like, even though you don't have as many, you've cultivated a lifelong fan. I remember there's a big YouTube channel called Bam Lounge. They were a comedy sketch YouTube channel, which historically doesn't do very well on YouTube. They were big fans of ours. They watched like every video that we made. I remember we also make Blu-rays of all of our stuff, and they bought. I remember they were really into the Blu-rays, but they have millions of subscribers. And I remember being like, hey, like, so how do you do it? Like, any pointers? And maybe they were just being nice, but they were like, yeah, we do really well with YouTube, but they were like, our stuff fizzles out after like a year. They were doing like some Minecraft stuff. They were doing the sketch comedy. They said fizzles out, and then we have to kind of like start a new channel, rebuild. And they said something that we kind of admire about you is, it's like, yeah, your numbers are small, but your alpha fans are like the like ratio to view ratio is extremely high. You don't have a lot of bots and children watching your stuff, you know, and
I have children, unfortunately, so just a lot of them.
They're like, you should cherish that. You should be really happy about that. So that's how I sleep at night.
I love when I'm one of my other endeavors besides my game design and my, you know, YouTubing garbage is I took up Twitch streaming like last year.
Oh yeah,
and I'm systematically trying to beat every single NES game. I have 670, I think, of the 750 carts. So
that you've beaten? You own.
No, I have them downstairs, but I've beaten almost 200. I'm on episode like 190. I forget, but somewhere around there. So yeah, and when people come from my YouTube channel to that, I'm like, oh sweet. They're like, oh, I didn't know you were doing this. I love old NES games and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, me too. I'm 40, and they think because I make trash YouTube videos that I'm a kid. I'm like, no, I'm literally just some dude who wants to make a living.
So that's the question is, like, because you could argue easily that, like, gossiping about James Rolfe and having that be the pipeline into all new fandom, all new fans, that is its own form of shit posting. That's its own form of it's like YouTube does necessitate that you start with trash and then you convert it into gold.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
That's an interesting problem. Like, because people will critique you for it. And then you're like, yeah, but like literally I don't exist on the internet without starting at the trash, right?
And this is a really interesting point too, because there's a lot of people who found you because of James Rolfe, watch you because of James Rolfe, but then when you post another video about him, they're like, will you leave him alone? Yeah. Or like, do you guys have anything else? Like, yeah, I've got a whole damn 10 years of back here if you want to look at it. But there's also like people who say you're just doing this for clicks. It's like, that's the internet. Of course I want clicks. Right, what the fuck do you think I'm doing?
Yeah, and the thing is like, if we wanted to design the entire channel around what's going to drive clicks, we could do that. And
it would just be soul crushing.
Yeah, I guarantee you we could be successful at it. Like, I know I've seen the other fucking channels. I know what you would have to do, and I'm not willing. You know, I don't volunteer. I can make money at a day job, but if again, if there's an interesting conversation to be had about Kieran quitting or something.
And
I
it
think
is interesting. Like, as much as you might roll your eyes at, well, we got to make another one. It is interesting.
Yeah.
You guys have good takes on it.
But that's the truth of it. And this is a little bit hard to convey again to a broad audience, but we never have to make another one. We don't have to make another one ever again.
But it's fun to talk about.
Here's the finances, folks. Last year we made $12,000 on YouTube. Like, that was the total amount of money. And if I were to split that between me, John, and EJ, none of us are living on $12,000 a year, right? So
we all have full-time jobs.
I'm not living on this stuff. So I never have to. My commitment on that particular topic has always been, if we want to talk about something, we're going to, and if we don't want to talk about it, we're not going to. And that seems like a pretty good. It's
a good place to be.
Yeah.
Well, you want to hear something disgusting? My first good year on YouTube, I made 40 grand.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I was like, holy shit. That's why I started feeding the slot machine. And now it's kind of tapered off to be like a lot more reasonable. But I still work 40. I'm not going to not work. But yeah, it's not that good anymore.
40,000 is incredible. But yeah, like, it's like, how many years of that in a row could you do? And depending on where we live on the East Coast, like $40,000 is well below the median family income.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd have to do double that, and then. Yeah.
But like, if you add that to like a 60 grand a year job, then you're living comfortably. And I live by myself. I have my own house. So it's like,
right.
I don't have to worry about nothing. So YouTube is that nice thing on the side that I don't want to lose, but I'm very prepared if it just disappeared off the face of the earth.
I will say that I work as hard on YouTube as I do on my day job. So it is as though I have two jobs, I would say.
For me, it's like, as soon as I see the algorithm maybe start to, my views are starting to, I better churn out another, It's been 6 months. It hasn't happened yet. So I was like, but pretty soon I'm going to have to put another video out like that. But for now, I'm doing all these creative things or whatever, other outlets. So I don't have to feed the slot machine, as I call it.
The best thing has been, I've met amazing people through the process. We've had Dylan the Night Owl was on our show. We had just recently, we had Dancing with Ghosts on our show.
All those, yeah.
I met this, through Boxmac, I met this animator named Chrissy Felmuth, who does amazing work, and I've gotten to voice some of her cartoons, which are like, impeccably done. Freddie Williams is a fan of ours. He's a regular on Red Letter Media. He's a comic book artist with DC and many others. And he and I, have become good friends. And, I got to, Cannibal the Musical is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a Trey Parker Troma movie. And Robert Muratori was in that movie, and he was the cinematographer. He produced a movie called The People versus George Lucas many years ago. That was I didn't even mention that. That was our first claim to fame on the internet. Was we made this this cartoon in MS Paint, edited in Premiere. It was called Lord of the Rings by George Lucas, and it was like a behind the scenes interview thing where George Lucas, we had just made Attack of the Clones, and we were roasting him for, going all in on green screen and everything, the kind of very tired jokes by today's standard. But back then we were one of the first ones. We were one of the first ones making it on the internet. And, that led to me getting to be in this cool documentary that was on Netflix, this People versus George Lucas. But I also got to meet like a hero in the process. So creativity, the film festivals have taken me all around the country and around the world. And like, talking about our kids again, the number one thing I pray for is that my child will find something that directs her attention in such a positive direction as film did for me.
Yeah, finding that thing that drives you forward.
Yeah.
It's super important.
Yeah. And some people,
oh yeah. I hope everybody does, honestly. Once you have that drive, like I can't imagine like people who just give up on everything. I'm like, I always have that thing being like, you got to do another this, you got to do, it's like, it's something, anything creative is so important that it's like, without it, what is there?
Yeah. It's like a positive feedback loop of dopamine. It's a reward system for productivity. So you've trained your brain to be like, no, we should be progressing. And that's one of the, and I've, we read James's book too. And it's clear that he was a troubled kid and that film saved him in so many ways and opened his world up completely. And it's maybe one of the things that's fascinated me is that he has kind of overnight ditched it for his family. And now that's a really easy thing to do and to defend because family is really important. And yet I think that it's important that our children know us to be full people. And
Yeah.
it's not necessarily good it would not be good for my daughter to see me take something I love so much and throw it the fuck out. It's
Because you'd
good for
grow up
her
and
to
be
see,
like, why did you do that? Like,
yeah,
you could have
it's
kept
good.
doing it.
It's good for her to see dad pack up the car with film equipment on a Saturday.
Mhm.
And it's like, he's going to go to a shoot. And do you want to come?
Yeah, go see it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a very good thing to pass down. So like, yeah, I tried to pass down as much as I could. Like, you get that creativeness out, always get it out. It doesn't matter if people don't see it, always do it. Like,
it sounds like
just
she's
get
got
out
it.
there. Oh yeah, yeah, she's always making it, drawing something. She draws a lot,
That's
and
great.
I haven't for a while, but I got a lot of posters and stuff around here that I drew.
That's
But
great. I can't draw
um,
for shit.
wait, I'm sure you're absolutely amazing at it. No,
Definitely
I
not.
don't know how people develop drawing talent, but I just always had it since I was a baby, so I have no
I don't
idea.
have very many natural talents at all. In fact, there's another thing I don't think I've ever talked about on a podcast or anything. I grew up with a lot of, I wouldn't say like a tremendous amount of insecurity, self-consciousness, anything like that, but I did have a hang up about, um, I remember being in a friend group of talented people. In other words, they were naturally funny, or they were naturally musical, or they could naturally draw.
Mm-hmm.
It was clear that they were born with certain aptitudes. And as I did an inventory of my own, I was like, I don't really have anything like that. And I remember
Like,
it was
what
John.
do I bring to this table, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I remember I'm not the funny one, at the time anyway. I wasn't the funny one. I remember John was like, again, a friend, mentor. He was like, I know what you bring to the table. You're a hard worker. He's like, you don't give it a fucking rest.
That's like
And
a Mike Wazowski thing. He's like, he
yeah,
doesn't, he's not scary, but he is
right.
fearless, kind of thing.
Yes.
So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, and over time, now I have put in 50,000 hours of editing or whatever. I have all the stuff that makes me an experienced filmmaker.
And you developed all the skills, yeah.
And yet, if I were to be totally transparent with you, in the back of my mind to this day, I still have a little bit of that. Oh yeah, but I'm not actually, like, I don't have any talent.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, or just like the knowledge that any talent that I am putting out to the world was just kind of like impersonated or created in a lab, and so it's not real. Something like
But
that.
it doesn't matter as long as the results are there. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares how you got it? You got it.
And then a big part of the podcast is when I'm mid discussion, I tend to impersonate people, and that is maybe I feel like that's maybe the one natural talent I have. For some reason, I can
Yeah, you can do some voices.
I can do funny impersonations. Yeah.
And where did you meet EJ? This is randomly off topic, but where did you meet him?
Yeah, he it's incredibly important to meet the right people. The right people really kind of like make this stuff. And by the time I met EJ, I thought I had met all of my lifelong collaborators and we weren't going to have any more.
Mm-hmm.
But I met him. So I went to film school for 4 years, and then I graduated. I went to Los Angeles thinking I was going to live out there. I hated it. I came back to Massachusetts because I was like, that's where all the ball busting is, and that's where all my filmmaking friends are. Yeah, that's where my family of. And that's the other thing is like none of the friends that I stayed in contact with actually went to film school. So I was the film school guy that just got his kind of like towny friends to help him out, and I was like, I like that. I want to go back to that. But then I enrolled in a Master's of Fine Arts program because I thought I was going to teach film because I couldn't think of anything better. And that actually led to an IT thing unexpectedly. But while I was in that program was really interesting because while the undergrad was all people who wanted to move to Los Angeles, work in the industry, become screenwriters, directors, whatever, of narrative films generally, people who go to get their master's in filmmaking tend to not necessarily be that. They either want to be teachers or they want to be documentarians or they want to be a lot of them wanted to, this is in Boston, so a lot of them wanted to actually work like for PBS or they wanted to like make movies in Boston, which like Boston doesn't have a booming film industry.
No.
So but then I met EJ through that program, and unlike all of essentially this like student body of activists and documentarians, he was the one that like loved Nintendo and wanted to make cartoons. And we hit it off, and he knew about my cartoons. He knew about Lord of the Rings by George Lucas. I remember he worked for me. I worked for the IT department, and he worked for me for a short period of time. And we learned that we had some of the same interests. And he offered. He said, hey, if you ever want like to write another cartoon, I actually do animate for real, unlike you, and I could make it look nice, and we could maybe work on something together. And I said, yeah, that sounds great. And I forgot all about it. And then we graduated. And I always liked EJ. I always, I casted him in a movie in a bit part, but he emails me one day after we graduated, and he said, hey, now that we're all done with all the school stuff, like I'm still making stuff. Can you believe it? And
let's make that thing we talked about.
Yeah, he was like, I'm trying to put out kind of like a squiggle animation, the sort of Dr. Katz
like
style.
Dr. Katz and home movies, yeah.
Home movies, yeah. He's like, I'm trying to put out something like that once a week, 20 seconds. He's like, would you mind reading the script? I remember he emailed me he directed me over email. He was like, just do it like Ringo Starr, or do it this way or whatever. And so I was voicing his cartoons, and that was just a blast, just to get to be part of something that wasn't my own. And then he surprised me because I didn't know him to be a cinematographer. And I had been working up to that point with like 3 or 4 different cinematographers. I learned after I shot my first movie myself, and I learned after that I should never do that ever again. I'm halfway decent at it, but I think a director, cinematographer, writer relationship is extremely important. It's what frees you up when you're on set to pay attention to the things that a director should be paying attention to.
Yeah, instead of paying like exactly the shots and everything, you're actually focusing on what needs to be done.
And then they can bring a DNA to it that you can't bring. It's very, very important to have a cinematographer. They're one of the most important voices in a movie. So I had been looking for the perfect one for a while. I'd worked with a great one on ABO, and then for a couple of movies, I worked with this guy, Kyle, who I had a close relationship with. Then he moved away to New York. And then EJ we were making this documentary about weddings. We had to make this thing about how expensive it was to get married. And kind of in the style of like Penn and Teller's bullshit. We kind of wanted to make our own one of those. And EJ was like, hey, if you ever want like another cameraman or something, I can do it. And I was like, yeah, I actually could use one. And then he would show up with an arsenal of equipment, not just the stuff he owned, but also he was working for the Boston Globe at the time as a videographer, and he had access to their entire equipment store. And so he'd show up with fun shit. He'd show up with anamorphic lenses, and
Oh yeah.
So we were just, we really, I would say, unlike my past collaborators, EJ and I found that we could communicate non-verbally. I didn't have to go overtime describing what I wanted and verifying it and trial and erroring things. This dude, for some reason, it's like we're brothers from another mother. He gets what I'm talking about, and I get what he's talking about. And I would say, like, yeah, so John, of course, I've described how special he is. EJ has been truly like one of the best friends I've ever had in my life. The guy, I've I had a lot of really important relationships in my life, but there's always kind of like hey, that person could move away anytime, or that person, I don't know what you could trust.
Wouldn't affect me too much, kind of thing.
Yeah, EJ, I trust him truly with my life. Like this dude has my back. I really feel that way about him, and he's proven that. When he joined up with us and decided to start uploading his stuff to our channel and helping us make stuff, he's been in it with us for 9 years, and he's an amazing father, and we share values, and he's the one who pushed me into the podcast. That's all his fault. He was like, hey, we should do something for the patrons. Maybe we should get on the phone with each other for like 10 minutes a week. And then of course
just bullshit for a while.
Yeah. So he's one
of the things that like kept me watching your channel is like, I was like, okay, you got Frankie. He's like the film guy, the video guy. He does the creative stuff there, the movies. And then you got EJ. He's like the Nintendo guy, the cartoon guy. I'm like, that's like a perfect fusion of like the things that I'm into.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Like, and we're dads too, and you're a dad.
Oh, yeah. We all got my kids. We're all about the same age,
I found that in the analytics is that we skew 34 to 44.
How old's EJ?
He's the same age, 38, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't know who was the oldest or the eldest. So John is, right?
John is the eldest, yeah. And my wife is the same age. And Zach and Matt, who are crew, they're a little closer to John's age, a little bit older. Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like, especially on like Twitch, like where I'm kind of a new guy, I feel like the old man. I'm surrounded by 20 somethings in there.
Well, I feel that way too, actually. On occasion, it has so like because I'm fathering somebody, and also in my day job I'm managing people. I'm often in the role of somebody who's trying to coach someone or trying to mentor someone. And it does occur to me that I'm sometimes talking to a young audience the analytics suggest that it's like 98% males. And so I'm like, so if now I already said that it's like 34 to 44, but those are the repeat viewers. When we reach really big audiences, it skews younger.
Yeah.
And so I do feel a little bit of an obligation to kind of whip some dad at them, a little bit of like, while you're listening to a slightly older guy, can I just try to set you straight,
Steer you on a decent path.
yeah, it's like I don't want to.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, that's one of the positive things that John brought to you.
Yeah.
Not as a dad, but like a mentor figure.
A big brother,
like
for sure.
So there is no harm in trying to pass that on further.
It's like it's how it all works. Yeah, so that's why when we talk about something like Kevin Smith's, like weed psychosis thing or whatever, yeah, that I kind of want to open conversations about like, things that contradict the conventional wisdom that you might find online.
Yeah. I still find that one, it's so cringy, that one quote of his, speaking of that video, where he's just like, man, if I didn't do it, I would have just ditched you guys a long time ago. I'd be like, what kind of friend that's not who you are. Like, what are you talking about?
And that's exactly
an
right.
Awful thing to say to a best friend.
That's exactly right. I don't think that's who he is. And
Mm-hmm.
Walt, the guy who was hearing that, he responded that way. He was like, the way you're talking is not my friend.
It's not the guy who I became friends with. Yeah.
Not the guy who I became friends with. And so what does that leave us with? It leaves us with an addict. That's somebody who's addicted to substance.
And who's trying to justify it by saying that it's responsible for all of his successes. And it's like, I'm pretty sure you were successful before that. Now, not so much.
Yeah. It's been interesting because I've been following, his, when he puts up Hollywood Babylon or Fat Man Beyond or whatever, I've been catching some of it. And I do think he's sharper. He's a little bit more discerning. Like he's a little bit more critical. He's a little bit more kind of, I wouldn't never call him aggressive or hypercritical or anything, but he's a little bit more kind of on the ball. He's a little bit less like, dopey.
Is he less that guy? The one, hey guys, like whatever.
Hey man, it's me, Kevin fucking Smith. Yeah. He's a little bit
the other
less
guy.
that,
I mean, yeah.
The other guy, but I can tell that he's still, and part of why I want to talk about it was because I relate to this piece, obviously not the substance stuff, but I relate to, he had said something about like the way he relates to all people in his life is through his art, through his content. And I'm like, well, that's me for sure. And is there a point where that's unhealthy? Is there a point where you should kind of just like let life be life?
Oh yeah. Speaking of like, my mind goes all over the place. Sorry if this is off topic, but like when you were making things in high school, even a little after that, or middle school, did people ever speak about your work as if it was lesser? Like, oh, are you working on your little movie? That's like the thing you would hear a lot.
Oh yeah.
Little movie. It's a way for them to downgrade what you're doing as being childish. I hate that phrase. Oh, you got your little movie going? Like, why are you saying little? I'm like 18, 19, 20 years old,
Yeah, well, so a few things about that. One is that our fourth movie, which is about a musician, is called Having Fun Up There, and it's from a line in the movie where somebody says, well, you guys look like you were having fun up there. It's a dismissive kind of, so I think even musicians experience that. But yeah, I remember one of the things that frustrated me when I was really young was I would show something I was proud of, something I had shot, edited, I thought looked pretty good, I thought it was working, and the viewer, especially like parents or whatever, who again, like can't imagine like that this would be a scene in an entire movie, or they don't know what goes into shooting it. They would ask the entire time, who's that? Who's that? Because you'd cast actors, and they just want to know.
It's like, don't worry about that. Just watch it.
Imagine that it's, let's live inside the fiction, shall we? So they would do that. There definitely was resentment, jealousy. What the fuck does he think he's doing? I mean, anytime you branch out and are aspirational and bold and very likely to make mistakes, I mean, people definitely seize upon you, and you find yourself disliked for that kind of thing. But what I find is that and this is the advice I'd give to a younger person, like brute force through all that, keep going, make the horrible thing, finish it, make another one, keep fucking going, don't stop, don't be dissuaded, because at some point the people around you who resent you are gone, and the people that might want to help you and might want to join you, the EJs of the world, right?
They
Like
show up. Yeah.
they'll notice that the train's going with you or with them or without them, and they're like, I think I might want to get on that train. That guy doesn't stop, you know. And
it is disheartening to have like somebody close to you be like, like being very dismissive of what you spent a long time working on. I've felt that a few times where it's like, it's like I worked for like 2 years on this, like, and it's just like, I don't care.
Right.
But well, it's just part of it. It's just not for everybody.
You've probably heard me say this before on one of the clips, but when receiving criticism, I always, even to this day, I always try to do it through the prism of, does this person want me to succeed or does this person want me to fail? And if they want me to, because you can figure that out based on what they're saying and based on their disposition.
If they want you to fail, you can just dismiss it, basically, right?
Just don't listen to them. Yeah, they want you to fail. They don't want this. They wish that it came out bad, right? And so enough. But if they want you to succeed, and and that's rare that you find somebody who actually wants you to succeed, in spite of themselves, in spite of their own ego. And if they want you to succeed, you should listen to every word they have to say. There's a good Neil Gaiman quote that I love. I say it all the time. It's something like, when somebody points out a problem with your script or your writing or your work, they're almost always right. When they describe to you how to fix it, they're almost always wrong.
Yeah. So at least pointing you in the right direction is a positive thing.
It's
but
very
they
positive.
don't always know what the best vision is there.
Yeah, it's very positive to hear, like, 5 people were confused at that part. There's definitely some problem in that, in the story at that part. But you have to do your own soul searching to be like, so how do you patch that up?
I take that very, very seriously with game dev. Like when I test it and there's a lot of people who get stuck at a certain part, I'm like, okay, what am I conveying wrong here? It's like, so I go back through the drawing board. But if they told me how to fix it, it's always something weird and doesn't work.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll deliver the criticism. They won't describe the criticism first. They'll go straight to the solution.
Yeah.
They'll go straight to, like, I think you should. And so, yeah, sometimes you have to kind of like backtrack them and be like, can you tell me how you felt when this happened? Or, this sort of behavioral interviewing you have to do.
Oh, yeah. And let's see. I was just looking at my notes, and I don't want to go a million miles on this because you have for a million times, but I do want to talk about Cinemassacre a little bit, if that's all right.
Yeah, I'm happy.
You're a bit of an authority on that. No, I'm kidding.
I guess but, somehow.
I wrote down, could you tell as a viewer? I watched James since the beginning, basically. Same. And could you tell when Screenwave took over? And I realized looking back that I did. And I looked in my YouTube comments history just recently. I'm like, yeah. I pointed it out back then. But I didn't know why. I was a little slower on the uptake. I think I knew that I feel like there were maybe 3 or 4 videos in a row, like maybe AVGNs, where I was just getting through them. I was watching them like they were homework. And it takes the 3rd or 4th one where you're like, oh, I haven't been enjoying these serially, I don't think I know exactly when they started writing for him, but I remember commenting. I'm like, what is it? Was Sonic 06. And I said, this is not something, first of all, that James would play. This is not something that he would do a video on. And I said, why is this look like Baby's first chroma key project? Yeah. Like, he would constantly suddenly be like in it, like, oh, I'm Sonic or something. He would like wander on, and that's the first time he ever did chroma key. Like, so I'm like, somebody else is doing this. Yeah.
I remember I had not enjoyed a few of them. I obviously knew that there was this new crew, but I thought they were just his friends or something. And then it was a friend of mine who was like, have you noticed that he's not editing these anymore? And it's funny because I edit every Boxmac episode. Mm-hmm. I edit almost everything that we do, with the exception of EJ's content. He obviously makes it on his own.
Yeah.
But so I would say, like, my editing voice is very present in my content, and I think James is the same way. I think, like, his edits, good, bad, or indifferent, they're his.
Yeah.
And I wasn't paying close enough attention, but somebody I knew that was close to me was like, don't you notice that it's not the same voice? And it was the Pepsi Man one,
Oh, that one, yeah, definitely felt wrong. I'm like, what the fuck?
Ah. And then this guy I was talking to, he pointed out, like, look in the reflection in that Halloween.
As they're walking in.
That's Justin. And I was like, oh. I was like, wait a minute. So is he hiring other? Oh, he must be hiring editors. Oh, okay. And then slowly you realize you're like, no, he's hiring more than editors. He's hiring like a bunch of people to puppeteer him.
I was just about to say puppeteers, because he's not even doing it. He's just like, if he could not even show up, if he could have them literally put him on strings, I feel like he would. It's like, I just want to be in bed. You guys can move my body around for this episode. I do not care. He would.
And I just don't understand. Somebody recently left a comment that was like, I like that the only dirt we can dig up on James is that he loves his family. And and I was like, well, that's not what I'm saying.
That's not the point. We're saying this is his full-time job.
Right.
Put a little effort in.
Yeah, first of all, like, the excuses about no time, they just don't make sense. Like, from mathematically, they don't make sense.
And that's frustrating for people like us who find the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. But then, he was transparent enough in that BTS video to be like, I have decided to spend more of my time than the average person on I don't think he put it quite that way, but he's like, I've made the decision to prioritize family. It's like, fair enough.
Yeah, that's totally cool.
I was thinking recently, like, maybe the better thing to do, though, would just be to be like, I got rich and I retired. Mm-hmm. And now, I'm like George Lucas before me, I'm going to make my own little movies that nobody will see. And
it's so weird, though, because, like, yeah, you can focus on it. Let's say he only wants to work 3 days a week, 8-hour shifts. You could still, you've said this a million times. I've seen those episodes. What takes you 100 hours to do these? These are not 100-hour projects.
He's simply not working on them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, I don't.
He's that inefficient, and somehow
honestly, it's probably some of both.
Yeah.
I think he just literally doesn't know how to do it better or faster.
Well, like, do you remember he used to? I always admired this about him. He logs how long. I wish I had done that on certain projects. I've never done that before. Like a full exercise of logging how long every aspect of a production took me, and then accumulating it. It would be interesting. But like, I remember the 100th episode, the Rob the Robot one. I think he had said that took him, I don't know, some ungodly amount.
I remember
of time.
It was an ungodly amount of hours, and I'm like, it was literally what? It's like there's like explosions you dragged and dropped onto Adobe Premiere or whatever, and it was like kaboom! Ooh.
Like, I could do this with a pencil between my asshole over a weekend.
It literally makes no sense, and he's like bragging that it took like 200 hours to get that episode. I'm like, that was a backyard project. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, let's say it was 200 hours. Like that's a serious.
I think it was like 140 or something like that he said.
You might think like, well, 140 is a 40-hour work week, so it's 3 weeks. He took it's like, well, but think about that. Think about editing that thing for 3 work weeks, day in, day out, only with lunch breaks. It's way too much time.
What if he literally does?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Oh no, I was just gonna say, what if he literally was counting the 24 hours, like not just sleeping too? He's like, oh, that took us like a week.
Yeah. Like, Gregorian time. I recently finished, like, I had done a discussion about Sega Genesis with a guest, and I hadn't expected that I was going to edit it to the nines. I thought it was just going to be a podcast discussion, but as we were getting into it and we referenced a million games and made a lot of points about finer details of games, I was like, you know what, this would make a really nice hour-long, highly edited podcast. It'd be a cool video, and I worked my ass off on it, and I suspect it took about 15 hours. And it was all I could possibly do to work 15 hours on this thing. When I was done, I was like, oh my God, I really put some time into that. So yeah, 140, 200, that's insane.
My 2-hour feature film from 2000, like, I swear, probably we only got together like once a week for like a couple hours. That probably didn't even take 200 hours. And it's like, I just don't get it.
He so even when he was at the height of his powers, I think he was always a little slow going. And you can, when he would describe his workflow, he would do kind of inane things. Do you remember, like, he would isolate sound effects from games, and then he would drop
instead
them
of just
in,
getting them.
Just fucking get them. Yeah, right. Or use an emulator, to do
Yeah.
screen capture. Yeah,
It takes
so,
2
I don't know.
seconds. I have 2 things written here. James's hubris, and that I don't honestly, in my heart of hearts, think he's all that talented.
Right.
That might be a
Right.
controversial opinion.
His talent was his passion.
I think he was at the right place at the right time, was surrounded by the right people.
Yeah.
And now that those people are gone, you can see that it's not that great.
Yeah, there's what's the saying? The influence of heaven always comes in groups, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like rarely, yes, an individual makes a massive difference. Sometimes an individual can make all the difference. But speaking for myself, Red Cow Entertainment is nothing without the group of us, without John Hunt, and that's what makes it what it is. I remember, I always talk about South Park, right? Because they're such a huge influence, but Trey Parker clearly directs and writes all the episodes. And so you're left wondering, what the fuck does Matt Stone do?
Yeah.
And I think Trey put it best when he was like, well, South Park is Trey plus Matt. And so if you take Matt out, if Matt's not in the writer's room, if I'm not trying to make Matt laugh, if Matt's not involved, it's not South Park.
Even if all he does is say no to stupid ideas, that's still something.
Yeah.
I would honestly, I would give James George Lucas treatment, because it's like he was surrounded by people that let him make the first trilogy what it is. But then they're like, oh, it's him. He's the secret sauce. Then he made the prequels, and people are like, this is butt pudding. Like, I don't like this. And then it's like later,
So given that seems obvious now, people will say things like, therefore, Mike must have been the real James all along or something. And it's like, no, Mike was an essential ingredient.
He was a part of it.
An essential ingredient, and that was the recipe. And that's what, it's those two guys at that point in time with that sense of humor that makes it what it much like, like the notion of remaking Ghostbusters is absurd, because that's not just some like, it's just a super good idea for a movie. It's not that great of an idea for a movie, like Guys Who Bust Ghosts. It's that it was those guys at that time.
In that period of movie history where there was nothing like it. The right special effect kind of, it's kind of practical, kind of not.
It's a beautiful thing about life, is like, you'll stumble into these rays of sunshine every once in a great while.
And when I wrote James's hubris, that goes along with that, where I'm like, he won't admit that he's just part of a team. He won't he won't be like, it's not the same without Mike and Bootsy. Like, he won't talk about that.
I dare say,
guys.
It's almost disgusting. And it's like,
it's a little far. It's almost disgusting.
Well, I wouldn't have gone that far had it not been for that very latest video where he described the writing process.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, dude, you fucked up with the BTS video. You've acted like quite the eccentric lately. You've said some really ridiculous things. You went through the plagiarism. You've been kind of like the magic is gone. Do me a favor. When you make this writing video, talk to us about all the people who help you. and
he
kind
of
didn't. He's like now people might assist non-essentially.
But I have final say. Yeah.
That was just like, okay, fuck you then. How about that?
Yeah. Fuck you, James, right in his face. But okay, so here's how I think it went down. Like, he had his buddies, he had his friend group. He made the show successful. It was fun. It was good. They were all laughing, having a good time making it. He gets big. He's like, I can make a movie. That's what I've always wanted to do. But that's not what he's been doing this whole time. He hasn't been making movies. He's been, just making a little web show with simpler concepts and all that. Then he ditches his buddies, makes the movie. Then he realizes, oh shit, I'm not actually that good at this. Like, I still have the mentality of the Snicks flicks in there, where it's just hackneyed shit. Honestly, the stuff he wrote. How could a person write that and not cringe? Like, all the stuff in that movie. And then so he got kicked.
He had a co-writer and he had a co-director, and so it's
but they probably didn't tell him no. Like, well, this is the nerd. But it's like that's not what the nerd was.
I remember before seeing the movie, which I famously have recut.
I remember
famously, I cut 50 minutes out of it. And recently, somebody was nice enough to write up in detail what I changed because I certainly forgot. But I remember seeing like, what was it, like the Dream Phone thing maybe, or there was some narrative stuff he had done, where he had gotten more creative with some of his projects before
Mr.
the movie.
Bucket, maybe.
Yeah, and I remember people being like, "Wow, that was super good," and I was like, "No, it was super not. It was
cliche. When you show people cliche things, they're like, "That felt like a real movie."
I was like, do you mean like it was what was confusing me was I thought the whole time, because we're talking about Mr. Bucket and Dream Phone, that any kind of tropes he might use would be a parody of those tropes.
Yeah.
And then
But I think he was being sincere.
Yeah, I was like, I think he thinks he's making a real horror movie about Mr. Bucket.
Exactly. But it's Mr. Bucket, wanna fuck it? But like,
meanwhile, Matei, as he's affectionately called, I think did know what he was making. And yeah, I think Mike has been the one with the insight the whole time. If I can go so far as to say,
which is unfortunate because you got things like the Loco Bandito over his shoulder. Where you're like, does he have good judgment?
Well, look, he's not the only person to make racist jokes in 2007.
Exactly,
that's for sure.
But so I wonder if the movie failed horribly, like his that traumatized him, right? The whole movie experience, that must have been hard.
Yeah.
So he comes back. He fucked over his friendships. He comes back. Were there any nerd episodes he wrote with nobody but him?
Impossible to know because he won't release that information. It's like a Chinese secret.
He probably came back and he's probably like, shit, I can't do this without my friends. I better hire some people because I already burned those bridges, kind of. Like, they're probably on thin ice with Mike. He seems like he's not super enthralled.
Yeah, well, here's how I think it went. I think that, first of all, let's put Bootsy aside because Bootsy was there to, I think, make some video game content, not necessarily, and he acted in board games. But I don't think he was ever.
I'm a boob sometimes.
I don't think he was ever there to like make AVGN or something like that. I don't think that's his skill set. So,
wasn't he kind of more instrumental than we originally thought, though? He was like a big part of Cinemassacre, wasn't he? Behind the scenes.
I don't know if that's true. I know that he was instrumental in. He and Mike were kind of the retro video game guys that got him back into retro video games. Yeah, but so I think put Bootsy aside. So then you got Mike. So I think Mike and James, and Mike has said this before, I think Mike and James made all the videos for a very long time. And Mike was a really big piece of that. So no, Mike was not just a helper on AVGN. He was a writer on AVGN who edited some of them at least. And he edited a lot of Monster Madness and he ran the website and he did all kinds of stuff. Then he did James and Mike Mondays, like basically beginning to end. He shot those, he edited those. They were a lot of times they were in his house.
That's probably what he enjoyed doing the most is those.
Yeah. And it was a stroke of genius because it meant weekly content that was nerd adjacent without having to be the nerd. That's bread and butter for that channel. And then I think when James had his children, which was right after he was traumatized by the movie, so chronologically it all kind of lines up where James wants to quit filmmaking. I think that Mike was carrying the entire channel. Mike then said, hey, Ryan, who hosts our website and does some of our tech stuff, we could outsource all of this to him because we're 10 years into the endeavor now and I'm getting tired. And I think I might have made enough money. And so they could do it. And wouldn't that be, and by the way, like I'm in a similar boat where I'm like, I'm almost 10 years into editing nonstop. I could really use an editing assistant or something. It's very hard though. Cause nobody's logged the same hours. Nobody has the same,
we're not in the same position. People like us aren't to make those decisions right now. We have to do the work ourselves.
Yeah. Right. So I think they said, okay, let's do it. Let's outsource to these guys. And I think it was a godsend to James. He never looked back. He didn't care how it impacted the content.
Yeah. He's like, whatever.
And then Mike, who just recently did a big blog post about why he quit James and Mike Mondays. It was like a laundry list of, it was the commute. It was the fact that James had no time because of his kids. He said it. It was the fact that it was hard to find games that weren't in depth because he was like, because I can't do like a 50-hour RPG with James with no time over here.
Oh yeah, it won't work. I saw a great video. I don't know who made it, but you probably have seen it. It was like hey guys, it's Mike, James and Mike Mondays. It was one of those AI generated
Oh yeah,
voice. It was great. The voices were perfect though, and he was like, "All right, here's Castlevania. Yeah, this is awesome. I love this." And then he's like, he dies. Like, "Oh, it's your turn now." He's like, "Come on, I gotta leave. I don't have time for this fucking shit." He's like, "Well, you always pull this time." It was very short. I don't know. It was just one of those funny AI ones where he's like, "Fuck James and Mike Mondays. Fuck this. I'm leaving." And then James just leaves. It was just funny. I love those.
yeah. I suspect that Mike got sick of James's antics and said, "I'd like to just go stream now. It's way easier. I'll be able to play the games I want to play. I'll be able to do I can stop editing for God's sake. Because editing, if you're not having fun editing what you're editing, it's not a joy.
It's a damn chore. Yeah.
It's a chore. But now it seems like he's boomeranged back. It seems like the channel has needed him, and he's been in kind of a more unofficial capacity. He's been popping back in and helping out.
Well, the best way I put it was like, I was like, James was the body, Mike was the soul. They're one person to make a great show, and I mean, it's not that that's a good way to put it, but it's very metaphoric.
Yeah, I think that they like any good team, James's strengths are, Mike is weak in the areas that James is strong, and vice versa.
Mike has bad like screen presence, and like, except for when he's being over the top, and like you can't do that all the time.
You know where I actually enjoy Mike, and maybe it's an acquired taste, or maybe I'm just crazy, but he did that podcast with Ryan, with Big Ryan, if you will. It was called Talk About Games, and you can see, I mean, to start, just relative to the Cinemassacre podcast, where everybody's awkward and nobody has anything to talk about. What I like about Mike is the motherfucker has opinions, and so he shows up with a pile of opinions, and
you don't care what everybody thinks. Yeah,
he's a good content generator. He is a personality, and so yeah, of course, if you hate that personality, you're not going to like him. But I actually thought he brought a lot to that show. Whereas that Ryan guy, I thought not as much.
No. I didn't see much of the podcast that any of them did, like the whole Screenwave or Cinemassacre podcast. All I heard is it was a dumpster fire train wreck.
Terrible, very very bad. But this Talk About Games one, I think, like, why not put that on the Cinemassacre channel?
There was something there.
Why not put it on the? I never understood why they didn't just upload it to the Cinemassacre channel. Like, they needed content, and they needed content from diverse personalities.
Doesn't Mike have some sort of problem with Cinemassacre? Is that what you think is going on?
Well, that's the question. It would seem not, because now he's back to appearing in AVGN episodes. He did the voice of Ernie or whatever. So I have no idea.
I also put down something that I've noticed, like with the new episodes, well, first of all, with the movie, like his definition of acting is this. Like, just that's it. That's acting. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, I also put something I noticed. The nerd in his prime, how much was it really about anger? It was just about funny observation. Yeah, there was some like, this is bullshit, fucking dog, conky dookie, whatever. But like a lot of times, my favorite episodes was just him talking. I remember like Little Red Hood. You remember Little Red Hood?
Yes.
It was him looking over the couch. He's like, so actually why it's called Little Red Hood is, I have no fucking idea. Like, he's just very casual about it. And like him talking on the couch with Justin, or I'm sorry.
Kyle. Yep.
Kyle Justin, with the Ikari Warriors. There's no anger there. It's just a fun episode. Right. So it's just like, I don't think the anger, and when he has manufactured anger nowadays, I fucking hate it. It's boring.
Yeah, well, even when he's in the old episodes, when he's outraged, but he's dressed up like Wednesday Addams, Yeah. And so like there's always a joke on display, and I remember what I found so compelling about it was, here's this guy in his bedroom, this young dude, and he seems to be getting wasted by all.
Yeah.
And he's talking about a game I have not played in 15 years. And now that he mentions it, oh yeah, you can just walk over, and
that was shitty. Yeah.
now none of that plays now, because we all are refamiliarized with the entire NES library, and retro games are new again. But at that time, that's that time when game values were really low.
Perfect formula.
Everybody had forgotten those games, and so to dig them out of the shoebox and laugh at them was perfect at that time. Mm-hmm. Now it's tired. And so even if the show was excellent, I don't know that it's like the right concept for 2023. You know?
No, it needs to evolve past that. And
Yeah,
like
it needs
some
to
of my
evolve.
favorite anger of his was never true anger. It was like or like the not fake stuff. My favorites were like he's like, I cannot beat this guy, and I'm trying as hard as I can. Like he's just frustrated. I don't remember what episode that was, but I'm like, he sounded genuinely irritated by it. I don't know.
Well,
That's when it was fun.
What are people who go on YouTube to watch personalities? What's the number one thing they're looking for? Whether it's comedy or a vlog or a podcast, because they're not getting A-list celebrity acting, they're not getting models a lot of the time. They're there for authenticity.
I was gonna say genuine, like a genuine person, not an act. They're there for the person.
Yeah. So if he's doing a comedy sketch, right, where he's dressing up like the Addams Family, well, it ought to be something that you can tell he's authentically finding funny, that he is delighting, he's like having fun. You can tell he's having fun. If he's getting mad at a part in a video game, well, you ought to feel like he's actually pissed off at that part of the video game, or whatever. But there should be a sincerity and an authenticity in everything. It should never feel like you're just going through the motions and pumping out an upload. And for a guy who his entire creative career was based on his own passion and his own juice, it's sad to see him move past that and become another guy who's like, I gotta upload for the money, you know?
Which sucks because we can all appreciate that. Yeah, it sucks to like go back to the grind, but you can make the grind your own. You can totally make the grind something you love.
He always had. You know, here's a guy who interested at least a percentage of his audience in the head incident, you know? So, I've said this before. I always thought he did a good job of, everybody got into him for AVGN, and he could have went all in on AVGN, and he did, but he also went all in on Monster Madness, and he also went all in on Board James, and he also went all in on ad hoc discussions about new movies that came. I remember 2007, that TMNT animated movie came out, the 2007 TMNT.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, I had been watching AVGNs, and then this James guy, who I was just learning his name was James, he uploads a video where he's just kind of talking over a logo of TMNT about his thoughts about the movie, and he's just a real guy. And I was like, oh, this is fun. Like, you know, he gets out of character and talks about a movie, you know, and so he always did a great job of doing the thing he thought he would have fun doing. And so to not only watch him lose that passion, but also lose that passion and be like, oh, the reason is because I had a family. Families suck all the passion out of you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want that message out there in the world that, like, if you have kids, that's it. You're done. You're going to be a husk of your former self.
I hope that is what literally drives him now. Like, he has that same passion, but it's for that. That's because I hope it doesn't replace the passion he used to have. I hope it's just directed now. That's a good. That's a fine outcome, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I suspect it is. I suspect
it's gotta be.
It seems like he's really passionate about his family, and that's great. I just don't want like young people who are uncertain about creating families to be like, oh, I shouldn't do it because like this guy did it and he lost all passion for all things.
Yeah, he's given a bad example by being like, family ruins creativity. It's like, no, it doesn't.
I remember when I told John that we were having a baby. He was like, oh, and I was like, what? And he was like, well, there's these guys at work where, you know, they used to have light in their eyes and now all the lights.
Well, maybe they have their henpecked or something all day. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know, you won't have time to do anything anymore when you have children. You'll just, and I'm like, oh, that can't be right. Like,
you know, maybe the first couple months you're kind of detuned for a while you're like doing the midnight oil kind of thing with the kid. But like, it all falls into place.
They do get older, I swear. You know, like by the time they're 4 and 5, they do get older. So,
and then they get interested in the stuff you're doing, and that's fun too.
Yeah, it was like that's why she's part of the content. It's because she actually wants to know how to do stuff, and she wants to make her own stuff. EJ has 2 boys. He was recently telling me, he was like, "My boys, they don't care about any of this shit." He was like, we were shooting with Gloria the other day. She wanted to know everything about all the technology. He's like, "My boys aren't like that." You know?
I'm probably like the cringy weirdo dad. It's like my dad does goofy ass shit on the internet. It's like I just let him do his thing. That's how I imagine she looks at it. Like, he's a weirdo. He does his own thing.
Well, by the year 2050 or something, every dad will be the weird dad on the internet.
Oh yeah, there will be no such thing as internet illiteracy very soon. Like, there's
exactly.
the 80-year-olds today will go away, and then that's that. Everybody will have known computers forever. So that's I guess good. But then the degree of computer knowledge is going to be the separation now.
Though I do find that since I work in IT, very young people, they're extremely, the way I put it is they're extremely digitally literate, like their whole lives are online, but they can't troubleshoot problems. They don't have, I think a lot of us older people got into technology because it was always breaking. And so,
and we self-taught. A lot of our stuff is self-taught.
Yeah. Like if you wanted to run a game on your PC, on your Pentium 3,
you just
like you had to learn about the operating system to do it. And so, but now like everything, it works pretty reliably. And so I think they're kind of, like they hit a brick wall when something doesn't work. They're not as interested in how it works.
What did I put here? I had a couple more things. Oh, stupid ass. Did you ever notice how annoying lately the nerd pronounces P's at the end of words?
No.
I need to get help. Like you'll hear an extra at the end of everything. Like just listen for it in a video. He's like, and I ate a bunch of soup and I need to get some help. It's like a bonus like poof at the end. It's not a pop on the mic. He just like extends the P a bunch. I'm like, where did that come from? That didn't used to be there. Wow. You never noticed that?
Like it's like the opposite of aspirating the P.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I wrote that. That's just something I wrote here.
I grew up in New England, and so everybody's got thick New England accents, and everybody here fails to pronounce their consonants.
They just kind of go right past them, whatever Jersey kind of thing, right? Is that what they are over there?
Yeah. So it's either like it's like all vowels, like get the fuck out of here, kid. Fucking kill all the hell.
Just no enunciating.
Yeah, or it's like there's a guy who went to high school with me who also made a film, and I watched it a million times, and like he was like a rival kind of. And I remember there was a line in the movie where a girl goes, the line was, "I don't gotta go, but," and the way she goes, "I don't gotta go, but,"
like almost like a Manchester, England like T. I wrote a letter. They just stop it.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's a good point. That's kind of where our accent came from. Is
it's New England, England, but new.
Yeah.
And then I also put like the whole Monster Madness.
Plagiarism?
What do you call it? The plagiarism thing. I was like, I can't fathom this. So let's say you're passionate about Monster Madness, which he was, right? He was supposed to be.
Definitely.
So let's say this is your full-time job. Let's say you don't even want to work full-time because of my kids. Let's say you want to put 6 hours in like 5 days a week. You wake up, you have your coffee, you go downstairs, you watch an hour and a half silly movie while you're like taking down some notes maybe. Go have lunch, have a donut, whatever you want while you're writing your thoughts down. Come back, and even if you have someone else edit it, just record the things you wrote down. Right. And that's probably like 4 hours gone by maybe so far. Send it off to your editors, or even if you get some screen caps of. I'm sure the editors can just get all the screenshots of the movie while it's there. How long does that take? And then maybe on Friday you do 2 or 3 to catch up to the weekend.
Yeah, the only catch with that is he has admitted he can't speak extemporaneously, so he would have to write it and he would have to record it. So like. And I think for him, gathering his thoughts and scripting things takes
But
some
like
time.
for every other human on the planet, I think we could easily do if we worked full time on it and we got paid shitloads for it. I don't know if you get shitloads, but if you get paid for it, I could handle reviewing. It's like you're complaining about watching movies for a living.
Right.
And giving your honest opinion.
He knows how ridiculous he sounds. Remember in the BTS thing, he was like, hey, this is fun, and I want to make sure you know that I'm having fun.
I don't want to work at McDonald's.
I'm like, I hope that's not even on the table, dude, because you've been doing this for like 15 years. I hope you've stashed away some cash. Because there have been times where Cinemassacre was bringing in huge traffic. I mean, God, I mention the guy's name and I get hundreds of thousands of views.
That's what I'm saying. I make decent money and I'm a nobody. And
Right.
I'm like, he's got to make the big bucks because he's got brand deals and all that. Not brand deals, whatever you call it. He's got all
Yeah,
kinds
brand
of
deals,
stuff.
yeah.
Like, oh yeah, it is literally. I forgot Raycons and NordVPN and stuff like that.
And those tend to be like for one, for the big ones, a read could be like $20,000, and but he's got to split that up with, I don't know what the take is for Screenwave, but now if I were him, I would definitely consider like, okay, can I accomplish the same thing I want to accomplish with this company with like one or two freelancers?
Yeah. That, which is kind of what he already had before he screwed it up with the movie.
Yes.
He had
Yeah.
his friends that are freelancers basically, and they
Right.
did great work together.
Yep.
And it's like, I bet you he's like not depressed, but like I bet you he's really upset at himself that he can't go back to the way it was because the movie did change everything. The way his friends see him, they're like, "You are a diva."
Did
Like,
you read
this
the
isn't-
book? Did you
No,
read
I
this
didn't.
book?
You guys summarized it for me though, so I don't have to.
Yeah, I feel like we offered a great service there. I'm surprised that they didn't, like copyright strike us or something. You're
Yeah.
making it, but people aren't reading the book. But yeah, towards the end, if you were ever going to read any part of it, I would recommend that you read the last chapter or two, because that's when he starts describing the trauma of the movie. And
Yeah, you
having
said like the you could take or leave all the college stuff, but the movie
Yeah.
stuff was very interesting.
Yeah, well, that's when you can tell. Like, I really do think I think he got so fucking burnt out on the movie, and he was like, I when this is done, I'm never going back to making stuff. I really think that's kind of where he ended up mentally, and so I don't think he really does sit around going like, oh, I wish that I could recover some of what I used to have, or I think he's like, no, I'm gonna run this thing on fumes, and it still brings in millions and millions of people.
Yeah,
I don't know about.
I don't think he makes millions, but
My guess would be, well, looking at like a Social Blade and a few other in the brand deals, my guess is that Cinemassacre is like a $1.5 million company per year. That'd be my guess.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Social Blade's not always right. My Social Blade thinks I make half as much as I do, and I'm like, I don't know if it doesn't count. Like, I sometimes make a 10-minute video, but I like absolutely dump like 7 commercials in there. Just because I know kids are watching and they're just going to watch it on their like on their mom's iPad or whatever, and they're just going to click through them. They don't care. So
like, I'm gonna make them watch these ads.
yeah, I'm gonna, and then I'll conglomerate all those bits into one video that I didn't have to work at all on. They're just like, all right.
I had a great idea the other day. I was thinking, wouldn't it make a lot of sense if YouTube offered for YouTube for all creators that you could upload a YouTube Premium version of the same video, and YouTube Premium viewers would get that version of the video instead of the other one.
That would be interesting, like a reason for them to do it.
And then that version of the video could like not have ad reads in it, for instance.
What about like members would probably make more sense, because like Premium is like the whole thing is because I'm a YouTube Premium user. I haven't seen a commercial in fucking years, and I love it. It's awesome.
If I had to quit all my streaming services, and I could only keep one, YouTube Premium.
YouTube would be the one, yeah.
Yeah.
And but what's interesting about Premium? Like with my monthly stuff, I look and it's like, you've made 17 cents on YouTube Premium. And it's like, wow. It's like, what's that? So it's garbage. Like videos that aren't monetized normally and only on Premium, just throw them out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's
the point? Well, because I had a couple that like didn't. There was a big pile of poop on the thumbnail or whatever, and YouTube didn't want to monetize that. Like, can't show feces, so it's like, but you can make ad revenue on YouTube Premium. It's like, you've made 17 cents in a year. It's like, wow.
Social Blade seems to think that they could make up to $360,000 a year on AdSense, and then Cinemaster Clips, they think it's like 22,000. And then if you add the brand deals, you add the merch, you add the games, like,
it's got to be a mill.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Merch too. Merch has got to be a pretty big one.
Yeah. I remember he used to sell all the DVDs. Like when DVD was, that's something always to consider with the entertainment business model is like when studios used to get to sell DVDs, they really got another bite at box office basically.
Oh yeah. That must have been great too.
And they don't have that anymore. Instead, they've just got like your subscription to their streaming service that they hope that you keep.
And it was fun, like digging through, even making our own DVDs as young filmmakers. You get to like dig through all the footage that you had, and it's like, oh, let's put some stuff together, the bloopers and all that stuff. You get to put that on there.
I always viewed it as like you're putting together like the Library of Congress, like archival version of your project, you know?
You know what's really smart about me? The movie looked great, and then when I put it on DVD, I didn't realize making the overly complex menu took the quality of the DVD down a little bit.
Oh,
because
because
I like
it took up space.
Yep,
Yeah,
it had to
sure.
compress it a little bit. So like my actual raw one is great, but then once I put it on DVD, it's like wow, it actually kind of got compressed a little bit there because I
But
put
now
like
there's
character
Blu-ray. Yeah, so
profiles.
you need to do a Blu-ray remaster re-release of
Nobody's
the
gonna
movie.
watch. I'm not gonna bother. It's on YouTube.
But yeah, well, there you go.
The one on YouTube is pretty crappy looking. It's a little raw looking, but I
I
mean
mean, I
it's
assume it was shot standard def.
yes, this was yeah. We started it in like 99, 2000, and we did not have access. We just used family stuff, cameras and all that. So yeah, I'll send you a link that you can flip through at your leisure. Just you don't have to watch it. It's 2 hours of trash. But like if you just want to like, what did he make? It's like oh, that's what he made. Wow.
What's he on about?
But like yeah, my games I'm very proud of right now. They're doing very well. I make Shadowgate.
Yeah.
For NES, Mac Ventures, the uninvited Shadowgate and stuff. Those were my inspirations.
Oh,
But
cool.
I put combat in them. So there's reflex based combat that happens randomly in the middle of trying to solve puzzles and do inventory stuff. So that's what I make now, and I've evolved over the past 14 years making a trilogy, and people are waiting for a remake now. So it's fun.
And how do you get how do audiences know about that?
I've built a small community of people who just find it on Steam, like it's got good reviews, and then like a YouTuber will play it or a Twitch streamer will play it. Word of mouth. That's how I got my audience there.
That's so good.
It ain't coming from my YouTube, I'll tell you that. The kids
Too bad. There's got to be some way though to connect those dots.
It's still very fresh. My games didn't take off until last year, and I've made
that must have been awesome.
It was really cool. Like, cause I was embarrassed though, because the one I made, the first one, I made in 1 week 14 years ago. And then once they started picking up, I'm like, I'm going to make the sequel now. I'm going to make the sequel. So I made a trilogy. But like when people play the first one, like, ew, this guy has no talent. What is this garbage?
Well, that's
so I'm remaking the first one now.
It's like my short shorts video. It's like this is a theme.
Short shorts.
you can't choose which thing that you've made is going to be popular.
Exactly. But like, and it's on that Steam. And I thought of a way around it though. When I make the remake, it's going to be on Steam as Cursed 1. Like instead of just Cursed, Cursed 2, Cursed 3. So I'll put a 1 after it. It'll just go right in between those. So it'll look nice in the list. But yeah, all my crap's free. But yeah, that was literally one of the first things I thought when I watched your video. I was like, that guy's shorts are riding up pretty good.
I knew it at the time, and I was like, whatever. This is for patrons. Maybe I'll get lucky, you know.
But you get a hell of a lot of bonus points for having Robotron on your monitor, and I was like, ooh, Robotron.
Oh, did I have,
love
did I have
Robotron.
that? Again, we didn't mean for this to get 250,000 views.
Exactly. This was a casual conversation randomly, and it's like that's the thing that sparked the views.
In fact, when the tally started flying, I was like, I wonder when they're going to say something about my shorts.
Immediate.
I was waiting for it.
Oh, here's an interesting one. I mean, you lost weight, what, like a couple years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
A year ago? How long has it been?
Yeah, I started the big effort in June 2020, and I hit my goal.
Okay, so it's been a few years then.
In June 2021, yep.
Okay, because like I watched some of the old box backs. I'm like, yeah, he was pretty husky fella. Like and you had the beard, so you just looked a little different. But I could still see you in it. But yeah, you don't need a beard to have a jawline anymore. You don't have to worry about that.
Well, that's when you're fat, you grow hair to hide yourself. You know.
No, but I was.
It's a bummer. It's like that was actually why I shaved the beard. Honestly, was 'cause I was like, well, I don't like the notion anymore of like let's try to hide who I am.
Yeah. But I was like, that must be interesting for you after your whole life. I don't know if you were chunky your whole life, were you?
No, I was
not as a kid. This is more of an adult thing.
I grew up as a runner, and I was pretty athletic. I mean, not I was terrible at like basketball and that sort of thing, but I was a runner, and I would say it's kind of like like if you grow up like Mormon and then you like one day you decide you're like fuck the Mormons. It kind of was like that. I grew up in a really fitness centric home. And where that was really emphasized, and then once
one day you're like, I want to eat Oreos all day.
Yeah, once I went to college, and of course John, and so he was making terrible decisions, and I was like, this is sweet. And I had a girlfriend who was not shallow, and um, and I of course never wanted to be fat, but I didn't mind being husky,
Yeah.
and I didn't really care about that so much. I didn't really care about how I looked. But then once you're making terrible decisions on the regular, your weight keeps climbing until you start to to deliberately do something about it. So in college, I went, I think when I graduated high school, I was like 180. And when I finished college, I was like 238. And then I made a big effort around that time when I was like in my early 20s and lost all the weight. And then steadily, as stresses in life, and especially having a child, came up, I went all the way to 289. And
That's when you start looking at yourself and be like, I got to do something.
yeah, well, it's like I heard something. Everybody talks about like you die for your children. It's like, well, would you live for your children? Would you because the likelihood of a heart attack starts to increase, and
Mm-hmm.
So it was COVID. It was I was home. I was remote. I had been working a job where my commute was insane. It was like 2 hours each way for 15
Ugh.
days. Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, that contributed to the bad health and everything else. And I would say editing all the time and working on things all the time contributed to it because you never prioritized the fitness. So I said, all right, I'm going to replace the commute with working out. And I'm going to, there's a whole video on this if you want to watch it. It's me detailing the weight loss. Like it's like a half
I didn't
hour.
click on that one yet. I'm pretty sure I saw it. Is that new?
No, it came out in 2021.
I was going to say, you put one out just like talking to the other guy, I can't remember his name, just like yesterday or something, didn't you?
Yeah, he I guess lost a lot of weight too, and he wanted to talk to me about that. But it was kind of some intermittent fasting, a lot of elliptical. I would do a fruit bowl for lunch, and I would normally do like a steak salad or a soup for dinner. That was it for a year. And then I became like a super runner again. I was doing.
Was it like carbs that you cut out mostly? That was your big vice?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the thing that will make you continuously hungry, and it's the thing that will, like I challenge anyone to try to overeat on chicken and steak. You probably can't do it.
I when I'm in a dev cycle where like you're on a creative push, you're programming, you just sit at a computer. Like I'm doing all the art, I'm doing all the animation, all the programming for like a year and a half to 2 years. Whenever I make one of my games, I've done it like 3 times, over the last, I gain like 15 pounds, 10 pounds. So right now I'm at the very end of that. I just released a game like at the end of last year. I got to lose like 15 pounds. What do you say is more important? I know you're going to say both, but what do you think is more important? Good diet or exercise?
Well, diet for weight loss.
I just want to lose. I'm like 185, but I feel like I should be like 170.
Yeah. Yeah. Diet for weight loss, obviously, because you can't outrun your mouth. But exercise for life change, because if you are committed to working out on a routine, in my case, it's 6 days a week.
I want to do 4.
Yeah. Well, that's great. But the point is if you have your exercise routine and you insist upon your exercise routine, so you're going like, nothing gets in the way of this. This is the most important. I make sure that I do this. And, especially if you can have like a home machine, like an elliptical or something, and you can like catch up on YouTube. It's great. It's actually a really nice meditation, get away from the grind time. I actually kind of like cherish the exercise time. Especially in the summertime, I can get some sunlight if I go for a run. But I think that the overall health benefits that are not necessarily weight loss of exercise, of more energy, greater VO2 max, of strength building, so that you can actually like function in your daily life.
Even just self-esteem is a big one too.
Self-esteem, you sleep better when you exercise.
Yeah, I'm starting to snore more, and I'm like, I wonder. It's every time I put on a little weight, you get that threshold where you start snoring.
It was very bad for me. I was when I was really big. Like my wife was like leaving the bedroom and shit like that. I was like, oh, no.
Like hitting you. I'm going to sleep in another room. But yeah,
it was really bad.
I like,
really
for some reason, my face tends to put on the weight first, and I hate that.
Yeah, I got a baby face myself. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I was. My main point was, how was it vindicating / weird / like interesting? What did it feel like when suddenly everybody's like, "Who's this little boy?" And the like,
yeah,
when
that
you were
was
called
hilarious.
the little guy or whatever.
Yeah, I
Was
ate
that
it up.
interesting?
I ate it up. I mean, 'cause I was just like, this is well. It's also a testament to you're never stuck in who you used to be.
Yeah.
Like you can reinvent yourself. You can make the way you used to look really weird to everybody really fast. Because you think like, oh, if I shave my, I remember being like, if I shave my beard, like I'm gonna hear nonstop comments about like you shaved your beard and you don't look like yourself for weeks. And it's like, yeah, you will. But after that, about a year passes and they think
Then
that
they're
the
gonna be
beard,
like, "Oh, you looked weird with a beard."
yeah, because the point is not what you do and don't look good as. The point is what they are and aren't used to.
Yeah.
And so you can reinvent yourself anytime. And there's other aspects of my life too, you know, like where I used to be very much this way and now I'm very much this way. And everybody, like if I were to reveal to people, like, actually, I used to be more like this, it'd be kind of shocking, you know? So,
So that was fun for you. You're like, "Yeah, that's right. Tell me I'm a little boy now." Like I
yeah,
win.
yeah, it's just bizarre, you know? And but I think too, like I like being small. It makes me feel, well, I'm short, first of all, so it's a more natural state. And I feel healthy when I'm small.
What is short to you?
I'm 5'6".
Okay, I'm like 5'9", 5'10", so I guess I'm a little
Yeah.
taller. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess if you, oh man, if you were 280 at 5'6", that is rough. So you
Yeah,
definitely made a good decision there.
I was really unhealthy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah,
Yeah. Well,
I bet you.
so when I rail against weed smoke or what, you know, whatever it is that people are like, well, you know, if they think I'm on a high horse, I'm like, guys, like I had a problem too, you know.
Yeah, you can overcome anything. But
Yeah.
like I can't even imagine how much better you feel on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it improves your life in every single way. Every single way.
And there's one of my buddies, he just like refuses to quit smoking and lose weight. And I'm like, and his brother did years ago, and he's like, I can't even explain how much better I feel. And I've been trying to get him to do it forever, he just won't. So I don't know how to
Yeah,
like get
it's
him on a
really
ball rolling.
it's very very hard because now that it became so obvious to do it and I feel so much better, the question becomes, how did it happen in the first place and why did it go on so long? And the answer is because you talk yourself into like it's good enough or it's normal enough or I can't really envision my life being all that much better, you know, yeah, I should probably get, although I will say this, I never thought, even though I knew I was fat, I never really identified as a fat person. I always kind of thought of myself as temporarily fat. Like I'll get around to solving this problem some other time.
Well, it probably didn't help that one of your best friends is very large. So you always
Yeah,
felt
right.
small compared to him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, by comparison, sure.
You're like, hey, I'm not,
And he lost hundreds of pounds.
That's good.
Years ago. No, he's as big as ever. But and it's a big problem. And there have been times where I've spoken to him about. Well, there have been many times where I've spoken to him about it. And it obviously is a psychological state thing, and it's momentum too. You know, so for your friend, my advice would be, like, just start walking the path. You know, you don't. It doesn't need to be about like getting to the destination. Just start walking the path. You'll feel better immediately, and you'll start creating momentum. And once you have some momentum, you'll be successful. But you can't do it until you decide to do it, and you can't force yourself to decide to do something.
Yeah, no, you have to want it.
Yeah,
That's the thing. I feel that I worry is that he's like, I got no energy. It's like, if you lost weight, you would. And it's like he purposely, since he doesn't like doing any physical labor at all, he'll avoid it. So now it's like that's a perpetual thing going on there. It's like, well, if you just start it, then it'll, But yeah, I starting weight when you're like only like 15 pounds to lose, I feel like that's rough compared to like when you lost like 100. That was probably, I'm not saying it was easy, but to get that ball rolling and seeing results probably was pretty easy in the long run. It's losing that last bit that can be tough.
Yeah, there's a reason for there's psychologically a reason for that. I think it's the way I have always put it is losing the weight is easy. Deciding to lose the weight is not. And
how about this? Have you hit your goal?
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you've maintained it this whole time, right?
Yeah, I'm a little bit less in shape right now than I was 2 years ago. But it's within reach at all times, and I have not stopped my workout routine, and I mind my food. And
well, you look the same in my eyes, so you didn't gain a significant amount back or anything like that.
I was hardcore. I got to like 149, and so like I'm like 15 pounds above that now. But I I would like, you know, it all depends on your fitness goals too. Like I was winning road races at that time, you know, and I don't, at the moment I'm not like super into that. I'm focused on projects again. But all it takes is going back to making one shitty decision per day.
Yep.
And if you do that, you'll be right back to where you were. So you can't do that.
And was your wife ever like, don't lose too much, it won't be the dude I married anymore? Did she ever give you any of that?
No, she was
very supportive.
She was always really kind to me when I was struggling, and you know, she never was in my boat, but she, you know, like any human being, she struggled with her weight too. She was pregnant, you know, at one point.
Yeah.
And so she was never gave me hell about it, but what made her awesome was as soon as I said, hey, I might be serious about doing this, she was like, okay, anything you need. Like she would,
having support's another great pillar there.
Yeah, you need that, you know. You need somebody who's invested in your success. Much like creative endeavors, you need somebody like that. So no, she just wanted me to be happy. She wanted me to be whatever it was that I wanted to be, you know.
What if you want to be a big fat man?
Well, she loved me when I was a big fat man.
Yeah, so there you go. You can't complain.
I think if the years ticked on and our daughter had a dad with unreliable health, I think that's
rubber the worst case scenario right there. Yeah. Do you ever get people claiming you are high and mighty now that because you lost the weight and that you look down on them now?
I've heard something like that once or twice, but not
really. Do you get
really.
comments like, shut up talking about weight loss, like it's like you're so special?
I've heard stuff, you know, I've heard like, oh, is this the guy who works out all the time? And I'm like, yes, but I wasn't always.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll hear stuff like that occasionally, but I think generally it's what's been cool is it started to like anytime we talk about weight loss, there's tons of comments of people being vulnerable and transparent about their own. Literally everybody's having a problem with this. And
oh yeah, I imagine most of your comments are "congrats, man," like that kind of thing.
It's like "congrats, man," and then it's like, now here's my problem, and here's what I want to solve about my issue, and so it's cool to read, and it's cool, you know. And
it's what I did just a minute ago. I was like, I want to lose like 15. And it's like, you know,
because everybody has some kind of weight thing that they're struggling with because packaged foods are fucked up. Like I often
my vice is soda pop is like it's a vice. Like it's not like I need it, but like it's so good.
Yeah, I never quit it during the. I drank diet soda, but I'm not here to defend it, but I never did quit it during weight loss.
Yeah, well, I mean, as long as you cut out, I'd say one a day is fine.
Yeah,
but that's one shitty decision a day. So it's like
it really
will.
Does it stop? And you'll get a taste for. Yeah, I think sugar is the big sugar and carbs obviously are the big problem. I don't think that we had nearly the prevalence of sugar that we have in food today. I feel like fast food and bad food existed before everybody became obese. And I would say 1999 seems to be this tipping point of suddenly you see obesity on a mass scale. And again, I'm not saying like, obviously everybody's making really bad decisions. But in order to make everybody obese simultaneously, something had to have changed about the food or the culture all at once. And it seems to me like we were talking about this on BoxMac not too long ago. Like you used to see like butter and more things, and people would consider that like really unhealthy. Yeah. You don't see butter and stuff anymore.
No,
you see sugar and stuff, right? You know.
Yeah, because like I mean, I grew up. We both did. We grew up in the '80s when the cereal was garbage for all kids, but we weren't all obese.
Right.
You'd think we would be. Like it's like food was terrible. We had McDonald's every week, you know, kind of thing.
Something changed for sure.
Yep. Yeah, the crap they put in everything's just different now.
Yeah. Yep. And somebody ought to figure that out and ban it.
Or are they making it different to where it's less satisfying than just the fat stuff, so you want more? Like they're trying to make everything healthy, but now you just eat more of it. That could be a thing too.
I suspect that that sugar has more addictive properties than fat, and
probably
that we're probably eating more as a result of the addictive properties.
Fat-free was the big thing for the longest time, but sugar-free still isn't as like buzzwordy. Like, hey, this is healthy. Yeah. It's always fat-free.
And I don't think I recommend a lot of sugar-free products anyway. I would just be like, just go all in on meats, veggies, and fruits.
Do you remember in like late 1990s, early 2000s, I forget where it was, where Olestra came around? Do you remember Olestra?
Yeah,
The
I do.
product that gave everybody rancid diarrhea. It was like
The
the
sugar-free
chip.
stuff, it does, it makes the fats.
Yeah.
For
And
sure.
like, but there was like instances of people like shitting their pants all across the nation because of these
Kevin Smith
chips.
had that.
What's
Kevin
that?
Smith. Kevin Smith has a story about that.
Yeah,
That
it
he,
was Olestra, and like they found out a little bit later that it causes like anal leakage was the big word of the early 2000s, late 90s. It
it's
was like
supposed to
all over
treat.
Mad TV. Like now we have products with 10% less anal leakage. They kept saying it like all the time.
Yeah, like
And I'm
the
like, oh,
anal
just
leak
because of chips. It's
sounds like
disgusting.
something that James Rolfe would say.
Yeah,
His
I'd rather
name is
eat a bucket
anal
of anal
leakage.
leakage. But yeah, that was a fun time. I was like, remember when the news was full of diarrhea stories? It was
The anal leakage era.
yeah, because people wanted to eat fat-free chips. It's like now they're shitting their brains out, and it's so great.
It's funny.
But yeah, I don't remember when that was, but it was funny. Let me see it. Let me see if I have any notes here. I don't want to keep you all day or anything. I can talk forever. I'm sure you could too.
Well, yeah, I think I've proven that.
I love bullshitting. I didn't even get into anything with like gaming and stuff like that. I'd be like, "What's your earliest childhood gaming memories? What's your favorite systems? What's like?" I have all these stupid topics down. But yeah,
Um,
that's
yeah, I mean, I could summarize. I could say NES. I had the cartridge of Mario Duck Hunt Olympic Games. We had the Power Pad. Sega Genesis is kind of, I think, my favorite console.
that
That was
was
the
right
first
at
one. That,
your like that's your age too. Would be like
yeah,
right there. It was like 89, so you'd be like
yeah.
in your formative kid years when it's like, oh, Genesis is the thing.
And N64 was like a magic trick though. That like obviously it hasn't aged well, but it was that was like the oh wow.
I sat in front of the TV playing Mario 64 for the first time ever, and I was just entranced. I was like, "This is the future right here."
Yeah,
It was. I had a
yeah,
big smile on my face all the time. Like that
yeah. I
amazed
just
me how good
couldn't
that was,
believe that we were gonna get to have that at home. Couldn't
and
fucking
I
believe
couldn't wait for more games. Basically, I only had that
it.
for
Yeah.
a while. I was like, I can't even imagine the stuff they're gonna make.
I remember Nintendo Power was sending VHS tapes to people's houses for some reason that would have ads on them,
I
and
kind of remember that.
there was one for Star Fox that a friend had. I didn't have that one. It was 30 minutes of an ad for Star Fox, and Star Fox 64, and it had sketches and comedy and all this shit, and then it would show like a sizzle reel of all N64 games to come. Most of them were still in beta. And then I got one just like that, but it was for Diddy Kong Racing. It totally sold me Diddy Kong Racing. Like I would not have bought that game if not for that magical VHS that showed up in the mail. And I remember it was like the conceit of it was that it was like a news story about like a local disaster, and the disaster
Never
was
saw that.
all of the yeah. Google like VHS Diddy Kong
I'll have
Racing
to see what
promo.
that is. For me, ads for gaming was always like on the front of Game Informer or whatever would be a CD, and it would have like demos and like things. Hey, here's Final Fantasy VII's coming next year or whatever. It's like wow, a video. It was like a what are those called? Real player video on like your AOL like dial
Oh
up back
yeah,
then. But
totally.
yeah, there used to be stuff like that. I'd be F-Zero X. Holy crap, this looks so fast. I used to love F-Zero X.
But I'm not really like I love video games and I love video game iconography and we talk about them all the time. But the truth is, I'm not. Like there are people who are gamers, right? I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm more
you're not constantly playing things.
I'm more like James Rolfe, where I'm kind
Yeah,
of a poser.
they're a part of your history, but they're not like your main hobby or
Yeah,
anything like
yeah.
that.
It's I don't music is like that too, where it's like, well, yes, I listen to music and I enjoy music, and I could tell you like some of my favorite artists or whatever, but
But I
I'm
don't
not like
obsess over the band's names and stuff like
I'm
all
not a
that.
music file the way I am like for cinema, you know.
Hmm. Well, yeah, like okay, who's your favorite director? How about that?
Um,
Because
Sylvester
that's hard.
Stallone.
But for somebody like you, also, you would have to be like, well, what like genre? What age
Yeah,
or what part of my life? Like,
I can give you my top four, no
there you
problem.
go. Yeah, who's for your most influential or favorite?
Yeah, Sylvester Stallone. He's directed some impeccable movies. Peter Jackson, Trey Parker, Christopher Guest. Yeah, that would be a good. I was
Those are the good
thinking
ones. I
Christopher
I
Guest.
like the being I was in a good position for Lord of the Rings when I kind of miss having a year between three movies that you were seeing. There was something special about that because I didn't read the book. So like people are like, oh, you can't. I'll bet you can't wait to see the next. I couldn't. I was like, this is going to be exciting. Every year
Yeah,
you
I
had
didn't know
something to
what the
look
fuck was
forward
going to
to.
happen. I thought maybe they would never make it to that volcano.
But yeah, that was a great position to be in, is to not read the books, because
Yeah.
I did read The Hobbit, but I never saw it, and I didn't like that trilogy at all.
No, that was a. I was just thinking the other day about how like, it would be great to see a I don't know, like a documentary about what Guillermo del Toro's Hobbit would have been. That would be kind of
Like if it was just a duology instead of a trilogy, I think it would have
yeah,
been great as a two-movie thing.
maybe like if we could see some of like the creatures he was building, and it'd be like I don't know if there was a cool independent documentary called "The Death of Superman Lives," and it was about the Nick Cage Tim Burton Superman movie that never
Yeah.
was. I love stuff like that. I would love to see one about that.
Is that the
I
one
would
where he
love.
looks like bald but has long hair? Nick Cage in a Superman outfit, where it
He's
looks like his
yeah, and
forehead huge.
he has his receding hairline, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has long hair. Yeah, and spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen The Flash yet, but there's a big sort of story that Kevin Smith told a long time ago about how he was writing that Tim Burton movie, and the producer John Peters wanted for Superman to fight a giant spider in the third act, and it made no sense. It has nothing to do with Superman. Why a giant spider? And then he made Wild Wild West a few years later, and there was a giant spider in the
Giant
third
spider,
act.
yeah.
But now that Flash is out, there's again spoilers. There's a sort of a sequence towards the end that shows the multiverse of Superman, and one of them is Nick Cage flying around as Superman, and he's fighting a giant
Like the story
spider,
that never happened.
and he's fighting a giant spider, which I was like, that is such a deep cut. That is so good. I'm so glad I got to see that.
That's some fan service right there for the true fans.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, you don't see a lot of that where it's like, hey, you 5 people out there who care, like here's a little thing for you.
yeah, I love it. Love it.
What's the last thing you saw in the theater?
It was the Flash. I just saw the Flash. Yeah.
Oh, the one that just came out. Okay.
Yep.
I don't know how many there are. Like I don't know much about the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I thought you were gonna say I don't know how many people saw that, and you'd be right
Yeah.
because like it made like $10 million or something.
It was a huge flop, wasn't it?
Huge flop. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean they're in a slump. They need to do something.
I just recently graphed out because I'm a nerd. I took the earnings and the budgets for every DCEU movie, and because I was, they've all had a troubled history. Like they're not batting a great average, and unlike Marvel that was doing really well until recently.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to know. I was like, have these movies been, even though they have been really like generally not great, have the box offices generally been pretty good? Like, have they justified their own existence? And the box offices are quite good until Aquaman, which Aquaman for some reason made $1 billion. I have no idea why.
Yeah, isn't it Momoa the reason that it became so like people love
I guess
him?
no. I mean, he's a star. Yeah, he's definitely a movie star. So I guess I get it. But then when 2019, 2020, when COVID comes around, with the exception of Joker and the exception of The Batman, which were outside of this whole effort, the box office crashes. And so I think what happened was like audiences kind of forgot about DC and they didn't come back.
Yeah, it's like I was good without it.
Yeah,
I didn't see Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Did you?
I did, and I loved it.
Was it good?
My favorite movie of the year. Yeah, I think
saw
James,
1 and 2, but I just didn't see. I didn't finish it off yet. So
I can't stop thinking about it. I love it so much.
I'll have to go see it then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's out of theaters by now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be on Disney Plus in like August or something.
Yeah,
I
I'll see it
my,
at some point.
I showed my daughter the first two. The third one, because there's some animal cruelty stuff, I wasn't so sure about showing it to her. But she really responds to the characters and to the stories. I think she's 6 now. I think we're gonna watch Guardians 3 when it comes out.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Might as well
That's
finish the story,
exclusive.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever tried to show her like Lord of the Rings?
Oh yeah, she saw it when she was 4.
Does she take to it?
Fucking loves it.
That's interesting because I feel like I can't get kids to care about that.
I don't know what. Maybe I got her at the right moment, but she's the kind of kid that wants to be talked to and told a story as she's falling asleep, and she'll ask me to tell her Lord of the Rings, and I'm like,
like,
all
this
right,
is gonna take a while.
Like 7 to the dwarf lords, great miners and craftsmen of the mountain halls, and 9 were given to mortal men who are doomed to die. And she knows all that stuff. She's like 9 to she knows like Isildur, and she knows his father, and she's gotten to know most of it. It's kind of incredible. Like a child can absorb that much story, but
Oh yeah.
this is one of the finest stories ever told, so
I think after I saw the movies, I read like half of it. I don't remember why I stopped. I don't think I became disinterested. I think I just like was doing something else. And at the same time, I was reading like the old Wizard of Oz books too, because they were easy reads. You can just like blow through one in one sitting. That was interesting.
We just
from
read,
like 1905.
we just read the original Peter Pan cover to cover.
I've never read that.
Neither had I, and I learned a few things. I would say that no adaptation I've ever seen of Peter Pan is all that much like the book. It definitely is kind of like critical of childhood in a way I didn't expect. And especially in the epilogue, Wendy comes home, the Lost Boys are raised by the Darling family. They all become office workers. It talks about that. And then like Peter comes around every year. So he stays a child. Everybody else grows up. And he's like kind of smug about it. And as Wendy gets older, she starts asking questions like, well, whatever happened to Captain Hook? Is he, no, yeah. I'm sorry. She was in the book. They kill Captain Hook.
Oh,
and she's like, remember,
that's what happened then.
She's like, remember our adventures with Captain Hook? And Peter's like, no, who's Captain Hook? And she's like, remember we fought him with the pirates and you killed him? And Peter goes, I don't remember them after I killed them.
It's not dark.
What?
It's fine.
and then like a scene or two. Then it's like, and then a few more years passed, and Wendy asked, "Whatever happened to Tinkerbell?" And he said, "Who's Tinkerbell?" And she was like, "How could you not remember Tinkerbell?" And then he's like, "Oh, it was a fairy. Well, she must be dead by now. They don't live very long." And so Tinkerbell died in it, and he forgot all about her.
Is the book more like it's time to put away childish things? Kind of. Yeah. That's the way they kind of. I can picture that.
You get to a point where you're pitying this child who is so so wrapped up in his own id and his own ego that
everyone else just moves on without him, basically.
Yeah. It's like sad. Yeah.
Huh. It's a weird lens that I guess. I mean, because everybody pictures the Disney washified, version. Right.
I on this read through, I found Wendy to be the most compelling character because you can kind of tell from the beginning of the book that she accepts that she's about to grow up, and it's kind of like her last bender in childhood.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And then by the end, but she kind of is poised for more maturity, and that's why they kind of end up in the situation where she's like, we're playing husband and wife, but you do know that like people grow up and become husband and wife and have children of their own. Like, do you have any interest in doing that with me? And this Peter guy, this Peter Pan character, he gives up all opportunity to actually have a real relationship with a woman. And
he's like, no way. Yeah. That's weird. Yeah, I'll have to see. I've never even looked into that in any way. The book, you just like pick it up and it's like, I'll read it to you at bedtime. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, she was interested in the story from Disney and we watch Hook. I love Hook. I was, she always needs these long stories at bedtime, and I was like, maybe I should read you some boring ass literature. And so we've been kind of going through some old ones. We did a Christmas Carol around Christmas time.
You have kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's funny. What? Let me think here. Is there anything else you want to discuss real quick here?
Well, if anybody's out there listening, once again, you can subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment. That's our main channel that has all of our kind of highly produced content. That's where you can see a lot of John content. That's where you can see making of featurettes of all of our stuff. You can also go to redcowentertainment.com and see it more well organized. And if really you just want to click on a guy talking like me, if you just want lots of this, Red Cow Arcade is where to subscribe. And you can either watch clips there, or you can subscribe to our Patreon for $2 a month and get the full podcast, which is about 2 hours every other week. So that's one.
And it's not all just James Cinemassacre. Trust me, there's a lot more to the channel than that.
Yeah, the algorithm won't show you that, but there is more. Yeah.
But I mean, you still probably appreciate the fact that did happen. So now you're getting more eyes on you and stuff.
Oh,
now
yeah.
You can. Yeah, so it's not like a crutch. That's good. Which we discussed. It's not something you have to lean on. So that's good. But yeah, it was. I don't want to keep you for your whole night. I assume you don't stay up till 6 a.m. like some
Yeah,
people.
I gotta go to sleep like an old man.
Yeah. Hey, I stay up too late, but I get up too late, so screw that.
Well,
But
listen,
yeah, I
hey,
gotta work on some
thank you
stuff.
for having me on your
Oh, of
show
course.
and for sharing me on your channel. It's been really fun to talk to you.
I was wondering, like, what you would have thought. Like, who's this jackass? I have no idea who he is. Or I assume you wouldn't care. You'd just be like, oh, sure.
Well, now the whole internet knows. Like, all you got to do is ask. I'll come on
Yeah,
your show.
just ask. Hopefully that opens up a million other people bothering you. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'll send you a couple. I'll send you a couple of things to peruse also, just to see what the heck I am also. And I'm gonna look through more of your guys' channel. I want to see some of those things you're talking about with your old stuff. I'm definitely gonna check them out. But yeah, it was great to have you on. And
All right, man.
send me the files. And I
Yeah, I
will
will.
get this work done. All right, you have a good one, man.
All right, you
Thank
too.
you.
Take care.